Hello, this is your host, Adam Graham from the present. In this compilation, we're presenting the last non-Christmas episodes of The Great Detectives of Old Time Radio from 2011. Now, as usual, these episodes are old, so any offers or information contained in them is not valid unless it's indicated on the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio podcast website at greatdetectives.net. Now, please enjoy this compilation. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to me, box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives, and give us a call at 208-991-4783, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. Well, this episode of the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. Thank you so much for your support. And here now is today's episode of Barrie Craig. As I mentioned, we only missed 1 week's episode lost. So from August 9th of 1953, here now is the 13th guest.
William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
There's one chap around who never fails to electrify you. He sure can turn it on and turn it off. Am I referring to the state executioner, I wonder?
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. A confidential cop enjoys a certain public popularity. He gets haberdashers' circulars in the mail, anonymous threatening letters scented with perfume, and he gets invited to parties. A fancy shindig is thrown somewhere, a special invitation is tossed at ye cop, and no RSVP to it. The host wants you so badly, he comes your way to invite you in person. My would-be host in this one was Badger Boris, the sort of guy newspaper society columns called a bon vivant in French. Bon vivant meaning Boris slept all day and stayed up all night. And when the cabbage got thin, all he had to do was go to the bank. The short, moon-faced guy who looked like a cherub weaned on pasteurized champagne.
You will, of course, be paid handsomely, Mr. Craig.
Paid yet for coming to your big blowout. Now I'm really overwhelmed. Stand aside for a body fall.
Then you agree to come?
After you give me the other inducements.
Well, fine foods. I've ordered 200 pounds of buffalo steak.
What do I wash it down with?
Liqueur Quisette.
What's that?
A Mohammedan beverage. I had it specially flown here from Istanbul.
What's for dessert?
Raisin cake. A plebeian touch to offset the noxious effects of a too rich repast.
Rich. I just felt the whack of that word. How prosperous will I be going home in the early a.m.?
Your fee will be $1,000.
Money flown in from Istanbul?
Oh, no. American money.
I'm your slave, Sahib. Sketch out the requirements of my assignment now.
I'm giving an intimate costume party for certain selected friends. A masquerade, you understand. You've perhaps read about other famous parties I've given in the past.
Who hasn't? Your parties generally make the front pages and the police blotter. Brawls. They always break up in bloody brawls.
You are, unfortunately, accurate. You will circulate with the guests, and when you sense that any of them are becoming too disputatious...
Too hotted up.
You will then exercise a tranquilizing influence.
Exactly what do I do there?
Well, strictly entre nous. A blow shrewdly delivered to the stomach, say, where the damage cannot be seen. I don't want a lawsuit against me.
Where do I cart the horizontal guest after I stiffen him?
I have an emergency room set aside. You'll find bandages, smelling salts, and restoratives in it.
Well, that's my job. Bouncer with kid gloves.
And a tuxedo. You must wear a tuxedo. And, of course, a mask. You were an honored guest, too. Oh, and one other small chore.
Don't tell me. Dilettantes, you said. On my side of the street, we call them deadbeats and freeloaders. They live piling up IOUs. A party sideline with them sometimes is palming somebody's jewels or wallet.
Yes. You will prevent any theft. I don't want that disgrace. Well, are we agreed?
One item remains. I'll need $10 on account. On account of I've got to rent a tux. I attended the party wearing a straitjacket, a tuxedo, a mask, and a noose around my neck. That would be the black bow tie. An intimate crowd like Badger Boris had promised. Everybody in costume and mask. And all of them milling around the food and drink, and each other. I got up on a balcony for a better view of the menagerie. Up on the balcony with me was a society photographer. A guy in striped pants who looked like an unemployed diplomat. He was taking flashbulb pictures. I watched him until I felt a hot breath on my neck.
Mr. Craig.
Oh, how are you, boss?
Call me Mr. Boris, please. I dislike informality.
You've got a problem?
This is the wrong station for you, here on the balcony.
It is?
I don't like you looking down on my guests.
I'm not. They're looking up to me.
Mingling with them, you can overhear and anticipate. Prevent any disorder by forestalling it.
Okay, I'll get down off my perch.
Besides, the ladies below resent the standoffish male. You must dance with them and flatter them. And be witty.
Witty? Say, can you tell me a few fast jokes? I got down and mingled. I wrestled through a few dances with a lady who had one stomach in front of her and one in reserve. She was costumed as a witch and wore a pink mask.
You dance beautifully, Mr.
No name dropping. Everybody's incognito until midnight. That's how Boris wants it. This step I'm doing, lady,
Yes?
it's a one-step. My grandfather had no further use for it, so he gave it to me.
I love being gay.
Oh, do you, my potted flower?
Your wit, it is a sharp rapier's thrust.
Don't let me slice off too much of your funny bone now. Shall we trip it over to the punch bowl?
No, I prefer this intoxication. Your strong arm.
My barking dogs. Lady, once more around, I'll need an oxygen tent.
Why, you are unusually winded. All right, you rest somewhere. My headdress is awry. I'll go repair it.
Godspeed and amen.
We'll meet out on the patio in 5 minutes.
Oh, 20. I don't want to overdo this.
In 20 minutes. It will be midnight then. We'll unmask together.
A rendezvous on the patio. Two alone under the moon. Me and an oversized dame dying to kick me around for kicks. Earning a living sure came hard. Midnight happened, like it usually does. I sneaked off to look for my witch on the patio. Patio was sleek flagstone with a floral display on it like a high-class funeral parlor. There was a moon that had a bloodshot look to it, as if it didn't sleep days. There was a small wind that poets and advertising copywriters like to call zephyrs. I found my bewitching witch on a love-seat swing made out of wrought iron. She had her arms outstretched like a snake about to give you constrictions. The rest of her was in a sprawl. When I reached her, my worries ceased. She wasn't being amorous. She was asleep as if she'd passed out. 2 seconds later, I changed my diagnosis. She was in another condition altogether. She was defunct, dead. There was blood all over her costume, like she'd been stabbed over the heart by a knife or a dagger. But the weapon wasn't around. At least I couldn't see it. But then the way the situation stacked up, I had eyes only for the corpse. I conducted some postmortems with my client, Badger Boris. I checked over his guest list. 12 guests. Is that the net count, Boris?
Yes, 12 excluding you, Mr. Craig. But then you weren't really a guest.
Who was the murder victim?
Cora Wilmer.
Cora Wilmer. Let me see. I don't find her name on your guest list. How come?
Cora Wilmer, the late Cora Wilmer, I mean, crashed the party. Symbolically enough, she was the 13th guest.
Tell me about Cora.
Gross, foolish, and very rich. A middle-aged matron, miserably in quest of the elixir of youth.
Chop it up.
Cora was 50. She affected the mannerisms of 20.
That sounds like a young husband in the picture she was trying to keep up with.
Astute of you. Yes, there was a younger husband. A bit player in theatricals whose dream is to play Hamlet, the melancholy Dane.
Was he here tonight?
You have the guest list.
Yeah. Mark Wilmer. What costume was he wearing?
I've already given you a clue.
Hamlet, the melancholy Great Dane. How did Cora and Mark feel about each other, or don't you know?
I would venture that they despised each other. May and December, Mr. Craig. The seasons are inimical and antithetical.
You keep clobbering me with words. Call Mark Wilmer in here for a little questioning.
I can't. He's gone home.
I gave orders. Nobody leaves.
Mark Wilmer, or any of my guests, don't respond to orders, as you will discover.
Cora crashed, you say, but Mark was an invited guest. Then who came coupled with Mark?
Oh, the Queen of Sheba.
Yeah, I saw the costume. A dish in harem silk with a ruby glued to her forehead. Who was she on this guest list?
Rita Romaine.
A heat wave?
Yes, if you must express it so commonly. She was the poster girl for the Inter-Allied Fruit Pickers Convention last year. Boat manufacturers proclaimed her Miss Cabin Cruiser of 1953. And Mark nominated her to be Queen Empress of his heart, soul, and liver.
You're trying awfully hard to supply me with a motive, Boris.
Am I? And I thought I was being so ingeniously subtle.
A May-December marriage that ended in divorce by murder, and a doll who won the hearts of married men. I hurried over to the Wilmer house. There was a wind nipping it up, the parlor floor lights were on brightly, and a piano was going. A late hour, kind of, for a piano. It was 4 a.m. I decided not to announce myself. Instead, I crossed the big lawn and found a station just outside the big French window. There was a hard-looking character inside, standing over the pianist. He had the look of a private eye. I made that guess, anyhow. I also guessed the pianist to be the new widower, Mark Wilmer. I got an earful.
Wilmer.
Yes?
You're ignoring me, Sonny. You got lost in Beethoven.
Liszt. I'm playing Liszt.
Now let's start playing truth or consequences, huh? I hear I lost a rich client.
Yes, you have. Cora is dead. But you have a new client now.
That's you.
Yes, me.
Sounds like you're trying to bribe me.
I'll be accused of it. They'll say I murdered my wife for her money.
Money, and how? A lot of loot falls into your lap.
They'll say I did it to be free to marry Rita Romaine. That I was secretly in love with Rita.
Which you are, Sonny.
They'll subpoena Gurko, a private detective, and put him on the witness stand.
And I'll testify the late Cora Wilmer hired me on the QT. I was to check with her once every 24 hours and see if she was still alive. She was that scared.
Cora pretended her fear to humiliate me.
I've got other facts, Sonny, in my little notebook. I read this off to the court. February 16th at 10 p.m., the defendant, Mark Wilmer, attempted strangling his wife, Cora. A Dr. Enright treated her for throat bruises and shot.
Cora baited me into assaulting her, to hold a weapon over me, to keep me from ever leaving her.
Maybe, but who'll believe you?
That's why you're working for me now.
Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. You know, what you're asking is a lot, Sonny. I got a big investment in my license.
A lot of loot falls into my lap. How much do you like money, Gurko?
Oh, who doesn't like money? The bribe has to come pretty high for me to be tempted to forget my duty.
It will be high. Even higher than your dreams, Gurko.
The big bribe. Offer and acceptance. Some husbands had their own tender way of mourning the dead. I'd really gotten an earful. When the private-eye Gurko had wrapped up his deal and scrammed, I walked in through the big French windows and introduced myself to Mark Wilmer.
Police persecution is beginning early.
Early? Your wife's very cold. She's been dead 100 years.
I don't like your informal entrance, Mr. Craig.
Next murder, I'll come down the chimney.
How long have you been outside those windows?
How long? Oh, I only just arrived. Now, that's a funny question.
Please get your business over with. I'm dog-tired and verging on collapse.
The $64 question. Answer it for me.
I did not murder Cora Wilmer.
You had motive to. Your marriage wasn't too divine. There was another woman in your life.
We had certain incompatibilities, my wife Cora and I. But we reconciled them tonight. We made peace with each other, patched things up, decided to give ourselves another try.
But you escorted Rita Romaine to Boris's party.
That's untrue. I went to Boris's with my wife. I found Miss Romaine there.
That's your story.
That's the truth.
Boris says otherwise. Why would Boris lie?
Ask Boris.
I will. What made you reconcile with a wife you obviously, disliked?
Futility. Cora couldn't be discarded decently in an adult way. She had a way of insinuating herself, taking hold and holding on. I couldn't stand up to the war against her. It was too wearing, too morbid. I realized that and gave up trying to win my freedom from her.
You gave up Rita Romaine?
I gave up dreaming.
But now with your wife conveniently dead?
My personal situation isn't improved. It's worse.
You mean jail?
I mean jail.
Not if you're innocent of murder.
That won't matter. I'll deny it, but I'll be condemned. The outlook is very black. I married for money. That's a count against me. I had violent scenes with my wife. I loved another woman. That will hang me.
Pretty fatalistic outlook.
I'm a realist. Hard luck has dogged me since I can remember. I'm never on top of a life situation. I've lived my life without a laugh, without a light moment.
I'll cry the day after tomorrow. You were Hamlet in costume at tonight's party.
Yes, I was. If you like, here it is.
The belt around the waist with the scabbard attached.
What about it?
The scabbard is empty. Where is the dagger that goes with it?
Dagger? I didn't know that there was it. Was that how Cora was murdered?
A dagger into the heart.
Oh. I told you I'd deny it, but I'd be condemned anyhow. A missing dagger in my costume. It's typical of my luck.
Then you won't try to explain it?
I can't explain it, Mr. Craig. I can't explain it because I simply don't know.
A guy on the edge of becoming delirious, you leave him for another day, a calmer time. Besides, I needed sleep myself. I got into my car. I just pulled away from the curb when I got notice that sleep was going to be a missing ingredient in my future. A try at murder number 2. Yours truly, the victim. I drove around the block and around again with my headlights out, watching for a car somewhere to come to light, start up and show the glow of its taillight. My car was the only way the rifleman could quit the area. The area was suburban, way off of the main hub. No taxis, no bus lines, and it was 4 a.m. Somebody had to try and escape by an automobile parked somewhere in the vicinity. All I had to do was cruise around and watch and hope. When I saw it, I saw the taillight first. A car starting up a half block away, pulling away from the curb. I raced over to it. I cut across its path, trapping it. A lady motorist took offense at what I'd done.
Mister, you're in my way.
That was the understatement of the century. I got out to go hunt for a rifle. Sorry to be so melodramatic, miss. Romaine, isn't it?
Yes. How did you know my name?
Searched me. It was the first name that popped into my head. I want to look in the back of your car, beautiful.
You have no right.
Don't please overplay the indignation, doll. I'm a detective. I'm at work. Well, I don't find it.
Find what?
A rifle used on me a little while ago.
Oh, this whole thing is absurd.
Yes, isn't it? I'd apologize, only I found something even more exciting than a rifle.
You found something?
Right on the back seat, wedged into a cushion. A dagger, beautiful. More specifically, a blood-stained dagger. We kept company, the Queen of Sheba and me, in a roadside diner. We split a gallon of black coffee down the middle while she poured out her sad tale.
I tell you, I don't know how to explain that dagger, Mr. Craig.
Mr. Craig? It's too early in the morning for stiff formality.
Very.
What were you doing parked down the street from the Wilmer place?
I'd gone to see Mark. How he was. Just outside, starting up his walk, I thought better of it. It looked too compromising at that hour. I changed my mind. I went back to my car.
You went to see Mark Wilmer hardly 2 hours after the murder of his wife?
Yes, I know it was terribly foolish, but I've never made a secret of my feeling for Mark.
So confess it to me.
I'm desperately in love with him. It's not so shameful as it seems. You see, I knew Mark first, before Cora did. We were engaged to be married. We had wonderful plans. Mark was afraid of our poverty. We were surely defeated because of the desperate lack of money, he said. Our marriage could not succeed. He kept adding postponement
Until Cora happened along.
Rich, possessive. She played on Mark's weakness. His insecurity, his overvalue of money.
She bought him.
Mark never really broke our engagement. He just eloped with Cora.
Why would your recent party host, Badger Boris, try to throw suspicion on Mark?
To hurt me, through Mark. Boris, well, he fancies me. I've laughed at his advances, turned down his proposals of marriage, but Boris doesn't forget, or even forgive. He harbors grudges. He's a horribly twisted egotist.
Did you go to the party with Mark Wilmer?
No, I came alone. Mark came with Cora.
And Boris did lie to me. I now have 3 capital suspects.
3 suspects?
Mark, wanting out of his marriage, out with profit. You to get rid of a rival who'd stolen your dearly beloved. And now Badger Boris to beat you over the head by framing the man you love. Now let's go, doll.
I'm under arrest?
House custody. Your own house, this is. The dagger was too conveniently where I could find it. I don't think you could be that careless about a murder weapon. Or could you? While catching a snooze on my office chair, a visitor barged in. The private eye, Gurko, just a little tipsy, like he'd been celebrating something. Celebrating his windfall was my idea, but I wasn't saying it aloud.
Barrie Craig?
None other than...
Well, hello, colleague. Gurko's the name. I'm a private dick like you.
The assumption is debatable.
I don't get the Craig.
It's a delicate question of morals, but skip it. What brings you staggering?
I'm here to say my piece about Mark Wilmer.
So say it.
Wilmer is an okay guy. He's a good, upstanding man, I want you to know.
And very rich. That is, if he beats the electric chair.
I investigated Wilmer, turned him inside out, not a spot on him, not a blemish. The boy can look the world square in the eye.
Goodbye.
I'm not finished.
You are. It's either out the door or through it.
Oh, you're unsocial.
I don't like investigators who talk glibly in their own cause. Out.
You know something? You're nuts. Now, why did I come talk to a nut? The way I keep knocking myself out defending people.
I got Boris on the phone.
Hello?
Boris, this is Barrie Craig speaking.
Oh, you woke me up.
It's noon. Time to rise and shine.
What do you want?
Those party photographs I saw being taken last night. I want them.
Why?
Well, a lot of reasons. One of them is I want to see if Mark Wilmer wore a dagger and a scabbard on his costume.
I'm afraid I must disappoint you.
Meaning?
I destroyed the pictures.
Come again?
The party was such a distressing bore, Mr. Craig. Hardly worth the sentimental memorial of pictures. I dislike preserving dismal memories, so I destroyed the pictures. Do you find me eccentric?
Only phony. Phony as a $9 bill. Goodbye. I stopped in to see Badger Boris personally, without appointment.
You have no business molesting me.
I know. Home is your castle. The pictures or the negatives? I want them, Boris.
But I told you I destroyed them.
Yeah, you told me. The memory of last night is acid in your soul. So why preserve it? Cute ad lib. You've got a genius for evasion. Now come across.
I'll have you thrown out of here.
We'll hit the sidewalk together. We'll ride downtown arm in arm. So close because we're handcuffed together. Let's measure your wrist for size.
You would dare handcuff me?
And arrest you. Suspicion of murder. You're sure going to look elegant penned up with the rabble. Well?
Well, you argue resourcefully. You've uncovered my one weak spot. I am allergic to odors. I could never tolerate the reek of your prison rabble. The negatives, you'll find them in that cabinet there. The bottom drawer. Take them and go.
I'll take them and go after you write a check for $1,000. My agreed fee for last night's rhubarb. Don't look so pained, host. I had the negatives developed, 8 rolls of them. I had them developed with a prayer that my hunch on the film would pay off. When I got a look at the developed pictures, I went traveling. Downtown to a Park Row office with a shingle on it that read the Gurko Agency. I let myself in with a skeleton key to wait for Gurko. I wanted to surprise Gurko with a bang. Gurko rolled in at the stroke of 3. I waited until his head showed. Then I came down on the target. Oh! When he came to enough to stare up at me groggily, we got down to cases.
You slugged me, Craig. Why?
Precaution to take the fight out of you. I checked into your background a bit. What you did before you became a blackmailing shamus. You were a champ boxer, runner-up for the light heavyweight title. I didn't relish coming to blows with you. I want my nose looking exactly like it looks.
What's your play?
An arrest. I'm arresting you for blackmail and murder.
I said you were a nut.
I developed rolls of film taken at Boris's costume party. Mark Wilmer never carried a dagger in the scabbard. I've got pictures covering the whole evening. No dagger ever in Mark Wilmer's costume.
So what?
Boris's guest list totaled 12, so Boris said. Boris was faking. It was actually 13 officially. He wanted me to think Cora Wilmer crashed the party, and that Mark Wilmer came with Rita.
All over my head, Craig.
Try getting up, I'll crack down on you. I've got pictures showing that there was even more than 13 guests. That's excluding me. On one picture, I count 14. 14 guests. The 14th was the murderer. Boris knew it, but he tried to cover it up. Not that he wanted to spare you, Gurko, but because he preferred seeing Mark Wilmer take the rap. He hoped to frame Mark. Your turn to talk.
Craig, what kind of guy are you?
Try me out.
That's better. I didn't figure you to be an angel. I didn't see any wings. 50-50. We'll split a fortune.
If I shut up about your murdering your own client, Cora Wilmer, so you could blackmail her widowed husband?
Yeah, that was the play. Mark was a frightened pigeon. Forget Cora, Craig. Nobody cried when she died. It comes out fine for everybody. Mark and the doll, Rita, they get married. They got dough. And you and me, we got dough.
It still needs a fall guy.
Boris, we'll pin it on Boris. We'll switch it around. Boris was out to frame a guy he hated, Mark Wilmer. I'll think up a way.
Like you planted the dagger in Rita's car?
Well, I did that to confuse things. Take some of the heat off Mark.
And that rifle shot at me?
Well, that was to scare you away. Only that. Hang the frame on Boris. Make him the fall guy. I think I know a way, Craig.
Don't prick your brains too hard. The little gray matter you've got, Gurko, concentrate on how you can beat the electric chair.
Oh. It's like that, huh? You suck at me. No deal. You're turning me in, huh?
That's right.
Why?
I could say for the honor of the profession, colleague. But, that would be corny, wouldn't it?
The National Broadcasting Company has brought you Barrie Craig, confidential investigator, starring William Gargan. Featured in the role of Rita was Jane Webb. Don Pardo speaking. This is NBC, the national broadcasting company.
Welcome back. Well, another episode where Barrie Craig deals with a corrupt private investigator. There was a much earlier episode, I believe it was from 1951, where a private eye hired him to protect him, but it was all fraud. The title of this episode, I do wonder, it was actually the same title as a 1932 Ginger Rogers movie. Different plot. I do wonder whether this was consciously chosen, though a title like The 13th Guest seems to be something that mystery writers of the era could come up with independently, given the theme of mystery and people's general superstitiousness about the number 13. I should mention that the lost episode in between last week's show and this one was Murder in 3 Acts, which was announced at the end of last week's show. Well, that will do it for today. We will be back tomorrow with Candy Matson as we begin our run of Christmas shows on Candy Matson, Let George Do It, and Sherlock Holmes. Remember, you can follow the Old Time Dragnet podcast, radiodragnet.com, and we'll have the Big Little Jesus radio version up on Christmas Eve. And then the Old Time Radio Superman show at laserandsword.com. Well, before we do get started, I want to let you know about my book, All I Needed to Know I Learned from Columbo. It's a very nice light read. We take a look at 7 great detectives from old-time radio, from literature, and from television, including Dan Holliday from Box 13, Sherlock Holmes, Nero Wolfe, Father Brown, Columbo, and Adrian Monk. And we examine their life and career, and then take a look at some life lessons that can be drawn from that career. So it's a fun read. We have been selling a lot of copies on Amazon as an ebook. It's available for the Kindle for $1.99. If you're a member of Amazon Prime, you can actually borrow it for free. It's a great deal. I think you will enjoy it. So for your Kindle, be sure and pick up a copy of All I Needed to Know I Learned from Columbo. And if you do enjoy it, we definitely appreciate a review on Amazon. Well, after last week's episode, the Chicago fraud matter, the next episode, the Lancer jewelry matter, is actually a lost episode. So we pick up here with the LaTourette matter, here on yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
From Hollywood, it's time now for John Lund as Johnny Dollar.
Dan Mapes, you left word for me to call?
Oh, Lieutenant, I've been trying to see you on this LaTourette thing.
What's your connection, Dollar?
I'm investigating for the National Underwriters.
Oh. Did you know Thompson?
Yeah.
Too bad. I'll be tied up till after lunch. You want to get together then?
Anything I can do in the meantime?
No, thanks. But enjoy the weather, Dollar. I don't think you'll enjoy the case. I'll see you in my office about 2.
Right, Lieutenant. John Lund in the transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, National Underwriters, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the LaTourette matter. Expense account item 1, $97.50. Airfare and incidentals between Hartford and Denver. I arrived at 6:30 in the morning with a cold, sun-filled dawn. I reacquainted myself with the mile-high city at the airport restaurant, where I drank coffee and waited for my luggage. I'd been there once before on a case in 1947, but the Denver I saw this time was a great deal different. Bigger, filled out, bustling. Towns, like people, change. I arranged to rent a car from the Avis people and drove on into the city itself. There, I checked in at the Cosmopolitan, showered and shaved, and waited until 9 o'clock before I rang Bessie Thompson's room.
Who?
Johnny Dollar, Bessie.
Oh, you're here?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in the same hotel.
Same case Tommy was working on?
Yeah.
Be careful, Johnny. Everybody seems to die who has anything to do with it.
Why don't I buy you some ham and eggs?
Why not?
Expense account item 2. $4 and... No, I guess not. This one was on me. Buying breakfast for the widow of the man who died on the case I was taking over. It was a difficult meal.
I buried him here.
Yeah?
I would have taken his body back to Hartford, but the expenses and all. Besides, it doesn't really make any difference where you're buried. The ground was frozen here, too. I hear they have to use jackhammers
What
to
happens now, Bessie?
I haven't anything to stay around here for. I guess I'll go home. Try and get a plane out sometime today.
Maybe that'll be better.
I'm 32 now. I'm still attractive. I suppose some man will come along. Even men.
Bessie, what is this?
You tell me what it is. The coroner said that Tommy might have been drunk, that he wandered out on the highway, and that the driver of the car that hit him could have done it and not even known it. I know Tommy drank, but not like that. Or did he?
What do you mean?
You were with him for 3 weeks in Omaha last year. When he was away from home, from me, Johnny, was he... did he drink a lot and get around?
I never saw him do anything like that, Bessie.
Honest?
Honest.
Don't lie to me now.
He was in love with you, Bessie, and he didn't care who knew it. Don't torment yourself with thoughts like that.
We're awful that way, aren't we? I mean, women.
I think you're wonderful that way, too.
Thanks. Tommy was murdered, Johnny. It couldn't have been a hit-and-run accident.
Bessie,
And they aren't doing anything about it. They haven't found out a thing.
Oh, easy, honey. They're working on it. You know that.
It's all tied in with that LaTourette man. Tommy found out something, and he was killed for finding it out.
Bessie, I'll have to tell you right now. What reports Tommy sent in on LaTourette don't make him responsible in any way.
Then why are you here?
Just to wrap up the details.
I see.
There'd have to be something more than what we have now.
Then there is something more. Tommy phoned long distance the night before he was killed. He said he thought he'd be coming home in a couple of days.
Did he say anything about the case?
No, but he was coming home. That meant he had it about finished.
He sent in a report the day before he was killed. There was nothing.
But the police didn't find any report for that day in his room. How did he get out to that place on the Golden Road? Who was he with? Johnny, he was killed. He had something on someone in this case, and he was killed.
If he was, we'll find it out.
All right.
Where's he buried?
Crown Hill Cemetery.
I'll send some flowers out there.
Get the man who ran him down. He'd like that a whole lot better.
Yeah, I guess he would. I suppose I was trying to tell her in the gentlest way I knew that men do go out to taverns and drink, that occasionally they do drink too much, and that it was entirely possible that Tommy Thompson had been killed as reported, and not for any information or investigating connected with Frank LaTourette. When I met and talked with Lieutenant Mapes at 2 o'clock, he confirmed this.
Here's the report from our arson man.
Uh-huh.
And this is from homicide.
Uh-huh.
You can take those copies with you if you like. Had them made up for you.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant.
The fire was reported by a passerby about 2 o'clock last Wednesday morning. By the time the trucks got there, the whole bookstore was in flames. When they broke in, they found Mrs. LaTourette's body. She'd suffocated in the smoke. Her husband said she'd been there working on the books.
Uh-huh.
There was no evidence that her death was anything but accidental. And in the opinion of our arson man, the fire was caused by her cigarette. She fell asleep working in the office, and the place caught fire. But your man Thompson probably sent you all this, didn't he?
Yeah, the fire policy had to be investigated.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as Thompson's death goes, we're looking for a hit-and-run artist. The people who operate the tavern out there said he absolutely was not in there that night.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, we'll have to go on that assumption because we haven't been able to dig up anyone who can say he was there that night. The tavern people could be lying. Thompson
could have gone in there, gotten himself loaded, and walked out in front of a car. They'd be in license trouble if that happened.
Yeah, sure.
On the other hand, we'll just have to assume Thompson wasn't in that tavern at all.
And what was he doing out on the Golden Road?
I don't know.
You know how he got there?
I haven't found that out either. Still checking the cab company.
He might have been with someone?
Well, he might have. I don't know that either, Dollar.
I suppose you've wondered if it could be connected with LaTourette.
Oh, yes. I've wondered. When a man in the same business dies like that, you're bound to wonder. But wondering about things is one of our hazards, Dollar. Well, you have it all right there. Since LaTourette stands to collect about $80,000 fire damages and $17,000 on his wife's death, he's been gone into twice now. Your man Thompson did a lot of it, and we did a lot of it.
Yep.
Now, the night of the fire, LaTourette was bowling over at a place on Glen Arm. 17 witnesses saw him there. He's in good financial shape, doesn't owe anybody a dime. The neighbors tell us he's always had a nice home life. He has a boy who plays football in one of our high schools. So, why look at LaTourette anymore?
Yeah, but...
But your man Thompson was killed looking into it. Is that it?
That's it, Lieutenant. Thompson's wife's in town. She buried him yesterday, and she's pretty broken up.
Sure she is. I talked to her at the funeral. Her husband died hard and cold out on a lonely road, and we say he was drunk and got in front of a car. But in spite of the questions we were just tossing around about how he got out there on the Golden Road and what he was doing there, it still looks like a hit and run on a drunk.
And that had seemed to have about ended?
No, I should say not. We want to find the bird who ran Thompson down. And if there isn't enough in those reports to satisfy you that the fire was an accident, that Mrs. LaTourette's death was an accident, and that Thompson's death was what we say it is, then just sound your horn. I'm around all day, and I'm open to any kind of suggestion. Okay?
That sounds fair enough, Lieutenant. I might give you a ring.
Right.
I spent the rest of the day in my hotel room going over the bulky envelope of police reports. I compared them with information Thompson had forwarded to the office before he'd been killed. No matter how you looked at it, the whole business was a story of tragedy, of violence and death. Mapes was right. I wasn't enjoying the case, and I was anxious to close it. It was dark by the time I got out to Park Hill and found the LaTourette home. Through the drawn shades of the living room, I saw the figure of a man. He didn't move when I used the doorbell. Hey. Hello in there. Hello?
Who is it?
My name's Dollar, Mr. LaTourette.
He won't be back until tomorrow.
I wonder if I could leave some papers for him to sign.
Leave him at the door. I'll get him later.
There was something about the voice, the strain and shakiness in it that worried me. I didn't leave the papers outside the door. I merely tried the knob.
All right. Come in if you have to.
Hey, what is this? Why the shotgun?
Get in. You get inside and close the door. I'll kill you.
Okay.
Move right over there, mister. Right over there. All right, you can stop.
Where's Mr. LaTourette? Oh.
You'll get the same thing if you do anything funny at all.
Why?
You'll be asking that from now to the day I die. Now get your hands up. Up.
They're up, Sonny. Look, he might still be alive. You could call a doctor and...
He's dead. I made sure.
I don't know who you are or why you did this, but you'll never get away with it. They'll catch you.
Who cares?
You better give me that shotgun.
Don't try to get close to me now. Who are you?
I'm an insurance investigator. My name is Dollar.
Mr. Dollar, I don't quite know what to do about you.
Give me the gun.
Oh, no. Oh, no. This little baby's got more work to do tonight. Yes, sir, just a little more work.
Why did you kill him?
He killed a man and a woman. I guess that gives me a right to turn around and kill him.
What man? What woman?
Somebody you probably know. A man named Thompson. He ran over him the other night.
Oh?
Sure. He ran him down with a car because Mr. Thompson found out about a woman. His lady love.
His lady love?
Oh, he had one, a real pretty lady. Well, then burn my mother to death in a fire so they can be together. I'll see that they get together real soon.
Your mother? Your name is LaTourette?
That's it. LaTourette. That's my old man lying there.
We'll return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Now, with our star, John Lund, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Bruce LaTourette was young, and he was obviously out of his head with fear. But in spite of it, he held on to the shotgun.
Turn around.
Look, Bruce, this won't do you any good. You can't get away with a thing like this.
Turn around now. Turn around. Go on.
If you're going to shoot me the way you did him, you're going to have to work on it a little harder. I won't turn around and die that way.
I don't want to shoot you. You haven't done anything to me. Now, I told you to turn around and do it.
He didn't do anything to you either, but you shot him.
He killed my mother.
He couldn't have killed her. The police checked him.
The police don't know about Evelyn. Nobody knows about Evelyn but me. She burned the store down, and he might as well have done it.
Evelyn? Evelyn who?
I'm going to kill her, too. And I'll shoot you if you don't stop right where you are. I don't want to, but I will. That's better. Now stay there.
Bruce. Bruce! Bruce! Bruce!
Operator.
Give me the police. Hurry. I gave a license number and the description of the car over the phone, along with the other information on Bruce LaTourette. Several prowl cars arrived, but there was nothing that could be done for Frank LaTourette. I waited for Lieutenant Mapes.
We sure pitched this one wrong. Lord.
Yeah, everybody did.
Huh? 8:15. I thought they'd pick up that kid by now. APB's been out since you phoned. Shouldn't be too hard to spot.
He wants to kill somebody named Evelyn, and he looked pretty determined.
I never saw such a thing in my life. You suppose he's dreamed all this?
I don't know him well enough. LaTourette might have had a woman who helped him burn down the store and kill his wife. He might have had to kill Thompson when Thompson found out about it.
That's the part that makes it no dream. Dollar, if we don't have that kid in our hands pretty soon, we'll be standing in another room someplace, looking at another corpse tonight.
Yeah, I know.
How could we miss it? Who's Evelyn? Why didn't any of these people in the neighborhood know anything about it when we questioned around?
I don't know.
Let's see. Farrell and Hayes, Staub, Weiner. Come on with me. Let's talk to these neighbors again.
Okay.
Boy, what I'd give for one gossipy old lady who knew everybody's business.
You mean who knew somebody named Evelyn?
Yeah, I guess that's what I mean.
An hour of questioning in the neighborhood revealed no one who had any knowledge of Frank LaTourette's association with a woman whose first name was Evelyn. Bruce LaTourette seemed to have completely disappeared somewhere within the city. However, at 10:15, a young girl walked into police headquarters and asked to see Lieutenant Mapes. I was in the office when she was ushered in.
What's your name, miss?
Jerry P. Kelly.
This is Mr. Dollar. I'm Lieutenant Mapes.
How do you do?
At the desk, they said you had some information about Bruce LaTourette. Is that right?
What will you do to him?
Try and stop him from killing another person. He's already killed his father.
Yes, I know. I heard it on the newscast at 9 o'clock.
You want to sit down?
Thank you.
You know Bruce?
Yes, we go to school together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly how to tell you this. It isn't easy, I mean. I've heard Bruce talk about it ever since his mother was killed in a fire last week. Maybe I shouldn't have come down here at all.
Well, if it'll help us stop him from killing someone else, you did the right thing.
Do you know where Bruce is, Dorothy?
No, honest, I don't know that. I'd tell you if I knew.
What has Bruce been talking about, Dorothy?
Well, he was pretty upset about his mother's death. He took it pretty hard.
Yeah, sure.
He was out of school all last week, and then when he came back this week, we had lunch together one day. He hardly ate anything, just sort of sat there staring out, you know?
Mm-hmm. Did he say anything?
Not at first. He used to talk to me all the time. I mean, we're pretty good friends. Oh, gosh, if my mother knew I was mixed up in this...
We'll talk to your mother, Dorothy. Go on.
Well, Bruce was sitting there, and all of a sudden he said, they killed her. I thought he was crazy. I said, who killed her? And he said that his father and somebody named Evelyn killed her. He said that Evelyn set fire to the store and that his mother couldn't get out. He said his father had been seeing Evelyn for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And he also said something about telling all this to a man named Thompson and that Thompson was killed, too.
Did he tell you who Evelyn was?
No, sir.
Did he say where she lived?
No.
Did he mention her last name?
Gosh, I don't remember. I think he just called her Evelyn.
Nothing else about her?
No, sir. Oh, wait.
What?
She teaches skiing.
What?
Well, he said he met her once with his father when he was skiing. She's a ski instructor somewhere. Does that help you any?
It might.
It did help. 3/4 of an hour later, the owner of a sporting goods store remembered a woman named Evelyn Warder, who had skiing classes on weekends. He located an address for her in North Denver, and I drove out there with Lieutenant Mates. She was a tall, plain-looking woman in her early 30s.
What is it?
Miss Evelyn Warder?
Yes?
Police. I'd like to talk to you for a minute.
What about?
May we come in?
Oh, yes.
You know a man named Frank LaTourette?
No, why?
His son shot him to death tonight. You know him? Miss Warder?
No. Why are you here telling me this?
Don't you know?
No, I don't know. I have no idea.
I was there right after Mr. LaTourette was killed. His son said he was going to kill a woman named Evelyn. He's still loose.
What are you doing, talking to everyone named Evelyn? You going down?
If you didn't know LaTourette, you don't have anything to worry about. If you're lying to us, you're liable to get killed. We came by because we thought you might be the one he's after. We don't have a lot of time.
I don't know anyone named LaTourette.
And you're okay.
Sorry to have bothered you.
That's all right. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
The pouting mouth, the plain face, the tall, ungainly person of Evelyn Warder didn't fit the role of a homebreaker or murderess. But we sat in the car across the street from her house. Mapes put in a call for 2 more cars to come out.
It really didn't get sunny all day today. And this is a pretty lousy night. Nothing to say?
Nope.
Sure you don't. You could be in a nice warm hotel room getting a head full of sleep right now.
I can do that anytime. Right now, I want to be around when somebody talks about a fire my company has an $80,000 claim on.
And the murder?
And Tommy's murder. Oh, the whole thing. Tommy's wife this morning wondering if he played around with other women. That kid standing there shaking and crying and killing and out to do more killing. I'd like to sleep. I don't think I could.
Wonder where that kid went to. Should have had him by now, if he stuck with the car at all.
How could he walk around town carrying a shotgun without being a little conspicuous?
Yeah. This could be the wrong Evelyn.
It's the only one we've got a line on.
Yeah. Dollar, this stinks.
What?
That's the right Evelyn in there, and if that kid isn't picked up, he'll be around to kill her tonight.
Yeah.
So let's go in and give her the business. She said...
Hey, across the street.
What?
That's the car.
The kids?
Yeah.
Let's go. How'd he get here without...
Over there.
Yeah. Come on. Bruce! LaTourette, this place is covered. You'll never get away alive.
Yeah. You okay?
Shooting in the dark. That isn't going to do you any good, Bruce.
Let me try.
Sure.
Bruce, this is Johnny Dollar, remember?
Tell your police friends to keep down or I'll kill somebody. I don't want to kill anybody but her. I will if you try to stop me.
And they don't want to kill you, Bruce. Put down the gun. law will take care of her if what you say is true.
I want to take care of her. Evelyn! Evelyn! This is Bruce LaTourette. You killed my mother.
We're going to have to do it, Johnny.
Wait. Bruce! She isn't there.
Get him away from here. Get him away from here. Get him away from here.
Upstairs window.
Yeah.
She wasn't here, huh?
Making himself a perfect target.
One more chance, LaTourette. Throw the gun down. Okay, boys.
Well, that did it.
Yeah. I'll get an ambulance.
Why didn't they let me get her?
Take it easy. They'll get her. They did get her. She was taken down and charged with suspicion of murder and arson. Bruce LaTourette was removed to the emergency hospital and died there 3 hours later. I was in his office when Lieutenant Mapes had a stenographer take a confession from Evelyn Warder.
All right, Miss Warder.
I met Frank 3 years ago skiing. He asked me to have dinner with him one night in town. Later, he'd see me every now and then. It was his idea.
Killing his wife?
That? No, that was mine.
You figured out how to do it?
Yes, why?
You mind telling us about it?
I knew she worked on the books in the store at night. I had a key to the store. I just went in there and saw she was sleeping and started the fire.
How?
Wastebasket. I knew the smoke, and that little office would do the rest.
Had you ever met her before?
Oh, no.
You never talked to her at all?
No.
Did he? I mean, about a divorce?
He said he did, but I know he didn't. He didn't want to divorce her from me.
So you killed her?
I guess I did.
The insurance man, Thompson?
Yes. I guess the boy told him about us. He followed us out to the place on the Golden Road. I told Frank we'd have to get rid of him. And we did.
Who was driving, Evelyn?
I was.
Your car?
Yes.
You killed them both, then? Mrs. LaTourette and Thompson?
You don't think Frank could have the nerve to do anything like that, do you? I don't know why I went for him. I really didn't, I guess. He had money. But no nerve.
Okay, Evelyn. Anything else?
What happens to me?
That's up to the court, Evelyn.
Expense account item 3, $12, hotel and board. Item 4, $12.50, car rental. Item 5, same as item 1, plane fare back home. Expense account total, $219.50. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars John Lund in the title role and was written by E. Jack Newman with music by Eddie Dunstetter. John Lund can currently be seen in the Universal International picture Just Across the Street. Featured in tonight's cast were John McIntyre, Jeanette Nolan, Sammy Hill, Virginia Gregg, and Eddie Firestone. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Cubberly inviting you to join us next week at this time when John Lund returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Sunday nights at the Star's address, distinguished drama is always your fare when Lionel Barrymore narrates your Sunday Night Playhouse. Each week, this fine program turns the spotlight on a little-known or unsung hero of American history, bringing you the highlights of his career in brilliant original dramatizations. Don't forget, this Sunday on most of these same stations, Sunday Night Playhouse, starring Lionel Barrymore.
America now listens to 105 million radio sets and listens most to the CBS Radio Network.
Welcome back. You know, if there's one thing that is somewhat unsettling that happens in old-time radio that old-time radio does very well, it is the casual sociopathic confession. You know, the angry, defiant confession, the crazy confession, the remorseful confession. Those are a little more easy to deal with. But when someone sits there and describes a murder about as calmly as you or I might describe making a cake, that is definitely unnerving. And there are people like that. I was in a barber shop and saw one of them on TV. I do have to say that, according to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, the insurance business has to be the most dangerous business I can think of. Somebody on the Dragnet podcast in one of the iTunes reviews commented that because they were doing a series of grocery store robberies, that running a grocery store must have been like deadliest catch. The same is definitely true of insurance investigators and yours truly, Johnny Dollar. I've lost count of the number of friends who were insurance investigators were killed already in the series through the episode that we're doing today. It's a remarkable thing in this story, and not a little bit outsized as to the actual risk and number of insurance investigators dying in real life. Well, we turn to listener comments and feedback. I want to begin by saying a special thank you to Josh for sending along a very nice donation, and we'll be sending along access to our premium site, which we do for all listeners who provide a donation of $7 or more. You get access to both the extras we do for Great Detectives as well as for Dragnet. Well, now it's time, comments from Podcast Alley. Roy writes in, an excellent show. I'm an avid follower, listen every morning on my way to work. The line, as a correctional officer in California, also listen to your Dragnet show too. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Roy. And I really enjoy the podcast as well as the background information and stories that Adam shares. I can't tell you how much I enjoy listening to the adventures of Johnny, George, and all the others. Appreciate all your efforts and hard work putting it together. Best to you and yours, from Paul in Sacramento. And Valerie says, thanks for the show. And have this one here. Love the show, Adam. Thanks for adding the great movies. I'm really enjoying them. I always look forward to listening to the latest mystery. It breaks up the boredom at work. I appreciate all your hard work and your zeal for the old shows. Again, thanks. And thanks for what you do. Love it. Well, thank you so much for all your comments and support. They're truly appreciated. I hope that you will have a great Christmas holiday. We'll be back on Monday, of course, with Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator.
I hope everyone had a great Christmas holiday. This episode is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. Thank you so much. And also want to especially call out the donation from Robert. Thank you so much. And we'll have a comment from Robert we'll share after the show. Appreciate that donation. And as the case of all donations, $7 or more, we'll be sending along access to our premium site with a bunch of great extras that I think he'll enjoy. Well, we had 4 lost episodes between last week's episode of Barrie Craig and this week's. From September the 22nd of 1953, here is Kitchens Come With Knives.
William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Murderers may have their difficulties, but they do have one advantage over the rest of us. Their work may be killing, but it's not they who get killed.
Coleman, America's leader in modern automatic home heating equipment, and the National Broadcasting Company present William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. But before we bring you tonight's story, a word from Coleman, America's leader in modern automatic home heating equipment.
Hey, Pop, what are you doing?
Setting the clock, boy.
What for, Pop?
Getting up early tomorrow. Gotta go get us a Coleman heater while the big bonus sale is on.
Yes, now's the time to plan ahead for a warm house all winter. Buy your Coleman heater during Coleman's bonus sale. You get 3 big bonuses.
A new low price.
Now you can get a Coleman oil or gas heater at a new low price.
A new low operating cost.
You'll save up to 25% on heating bills because Coleman has exclusive fuel air control. Gives you maximum heat from the fuel you use.
And a 32-piece set of Libby Safe Edge glassware worth $14 in any store, free with your Coleman oil or gas heater.
Get these 3 big bonuses during Coleman's big bonus sale. This offer is for a short time only, so see your Coleman dealer tomorrow. Look for his name in your telephone directory.
Remember, comfort costs so little with a Coleman.
Barrie Craig speaking. I suppose the classic position in which confidential investigators are generally supposed to be found is lurking in a doorway. I was in such a position this particular evening, but I wasn't enjoying it. For one thing, the doorway was drafty. For another, it was raining outside. And for a third, if that's necessary, I hadn't liked the assignment in the first place. All I had to do was wait in a doorway until a man named Sam Jenkins made an appearance, then go home. The next morning, I type up a report to the effect that Sam Jenkins was seen leaving 1012 East 43rd Street at 11:01 p.m. the previous night, and mail it to his business associates. Generally, there's a check in the return mail, all of which is fine, but not especially exciting, except that sometimes it gets exciting anyway.
Am I blocking your view, mister?
That would depend on what I was looking at.
Let's say the house across the street.
It's a large house.
I'm a large man.
I've noticed that.
Well, then why not take a walk down the street?
I like it here.
Look, mister, why don't you go find yourself a keyhole to peep through and save yourself some trouble?
Maybe I like trouble. You figuring on making some for me?
Okay. I think I'm going to enjoy this.
Enjoy what? Slugs in your stomach? The gun's loaded. I've got a license for it, and I'd be delighted to explain the whole thing to the police. It's your move.
You feel pretty brave standing there behind a gun, don't you?
Not especially. I just happen to be working, and I don't like interruptions.
I'll get in touch with you some other time, wise guy.
Please do. Goodbye. The large gentleman moved down the street, turned the corner, and that was the end of it, for the time being. It was a pretty obvious effort to make me stop watching the house opposite, and Jenkins exit therefrom. It hadn't worked, though. At least at the time, I thought it hadn't. By the time a couple of hours had rolled by, I wasn't so sure. The rain had stopped, and the night was getting old. Jenkins was still in the house opposite. He wasn't supposed to know I was following him and reporting to his associates. Up until the time I made my move across the street, I was pretty sure he hadn't known. That didn't explain why he was still in the house. I decided he might just as well find out about me.
Yes?
Oh, excuse me. I'm looking for a man named Sam Jenkins.
That sounds like a very dull thing to be looking for.
I'm a very dull type. Still, in my own dull way, I'd like to speak to Mr. Jenkins.
Oh, don't misunderstand me. I've no objections to your speaking to Mr. Jenkins.
You're making it a little difficult for me to get at him without running over you.
That sounds as if you thought he was in my house.
He is.
You must have a very good reason for thinking so.
I have. The best of all possible reasons. I saw him go in 3 1/4 hours ago. The time was 9:43 exactly.
He must be a train announcer or something. I mean, who else keeps such careful track of the time?
Investigators do.
Oh, I see.
I don't have a search warrant, Miss...
My name is Lynn Walters.
Barrie Craig's mine. Would you like to look at my credentials?
Oh, I don't really think so.
Okay. As I was saying, I don't have a search warrant, Miss Walters. If I were to force my way into your house, it would be illegal. The licensing board wouldn't pat me approvingly on the head.
Does that matter very much to you?
Matters a great deal. So I'm not going to force my way into your house. I'm going to figure that you're as bright as you look.
Why, thank you, Mr. Craig.
And that therefore you're going to ask me in.
Well, at least it's different.
What is?
Your approach. But it's terribly late. I'm alone in the house.
My offer to show you my credentials still holds.
I guess you can come in.
Thanks.
Now, are you going to ransack the house thoroughly, searching in every nook and cranny for, Sam Jenkins, I think you said?
I said Sam Jenkins, and of course I'm not going to search the house.
What?
That little routine at the front door could have given half a dozen Sam Jenkinses time to get out through the back door.
But I thought you said there was only one Sam Jenkins.
All right, then he could have left 6 times.
Mr. Craig, you're losing your temper.
You could say that. Also, it happens to be true. Sure, I'm losing my temper. Partially because you're a fool.
I am?
I can testify on oath that Sam Jenkins entered this house tonight. The fact that I didn't see him leave isn't of any great importance. I would have preferred to include it in my report to my employer, however. That's the only reason I rang your doorbell. You stalled me and gave Jenkins a chance to get out the back way. I don't mind particularly.
Then why did you lose your temper?
Because I'm a sucker for pretty women. I like to think that their lives are as clean and as clear as their skin and eyes and hair.
A very pretty speech, Mr. Craig.
Yeah. And the funny part of it is I mean it. Good night, Miss Walters.
Wait. I never thought very highly of men in your particular profession, Mr. Craig.
That's okay. Neither have I.
But I suppose it can be an honest and decent job.
I try to make it so.
Suppose Sam Jenkins were here, and you reported him. Would that be very bad?
For whom?
For Sam.
According to the story furnished me with my fee when I accepted the job, Sam Jenkins' partners suspected that he was releasing confidential information about the firm's operations, releasing them to people who would then be able to compete unfairly with the firm to which Jenkins belonged. According to further information given me, you were one of those people. Jenkins' associates wanted to be sure, however, that he was in contact with you before proceeding to take whatever steps they would then deem necessary. They can be sure now.
Suppose I told you that it wasn't quite that simple, Mr. Craig.
I'm afraid I wouldn't believe you.
Because you think I'm a liar?
Because I always believe a client until I'm forced to think otherwise.
I can force you to think otherwise, Mr. Craig, by telling you what's really behind all this.
That's up to you. I'm not asking.
I understand. Mr. Craig, Sam's partners are 2 men named Griffith and Swenson. Sam owns half the firm. They own the other half. They've been trying for years now to force Sam to sell his half of the partnership and leave the business. They haven't been successful.
Maybe that's so. But what difference does it make as far as my report goes?
The reason they want that report is because Sam Jenkins is married. His wife is a very jealous woman. If you turn that report into them, they'll take it to his wife, or perhaps they'll threaten to, unless Sam sells out.
I don't handle divorce cases.
Griffith and Swenson must have known that. That's why they told you the story they did.
You can prove this?
It's true, but how can a thing like that be proved?
Good night, Miss Walters.
You're going to send the report in?
So far tonight, 2 people have tried to stop me from reporting on Jenkins. Yourself and...
Myself and who?
He didn't give his name, but he was a large man. Maybe 6'2", broad-shouldered, dark-skinned, light eyes, gray maybe, or blue. He wore... Miss Walters. She fainted. It was a genuine faint. She hit the floor solidly. I tried to get her out of it by shaking her a bit, but it didn't work. A little first aid would be necessary. I'd need water. It was a fairly large house. I had a little trouble finding the kitchen. Finally, I found it. I found something else, too, though. Sam Jenkins. But a Sam Jenkins who wouldn't walk through any more doorways because he'd walked through the last one into death. Here. Try drinking some of this.
What? Oh. Thank you.
Feel better?
I suppose so. I guess I fainted, didn't I?
You fainted. Here, let me help you up.
Oh.
Hey, better grab a chair.
Yeah. That was very silly of me.
What's his name, the boy with the broad shoulders?
You mean Baldwin? Oh, you tricked me into answering that.
Is there any reason why I shouldn't know his name?
It doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Maybe you're right. I got the water you've been drinking in the kitchen.
From everything I hear, that's an awfully good place to get water.
I ran into something while I was there. Something I hadn't expected.
Are you going to complain about my housekeeping?
Maybe. I don't think you tidied up as well as you might have.
Oh, you're embarrassing me.
I think you're the one who ought to call the police, Miss Walters. They might give you a better break if you did.
Call the police? About domestic untidiness?
Yeah, when that untidiness includes a corpse. I'm not very good at being subtle about things.
What are you trying to say?
I told you I was in your kitchen. Someone else was there, too. Someone who's going to stay there until he's carried away.
Sam?
Sam Jenkins, yes.
You must be mistaken.
There are a lot of things I could be mistaken about, but they don't include corpses.
I don't understand how
He was stabbed. I didn't touch the knife, but from what I could see of it, it came from someone's kitchen. I'd say the odds were that it came from yours. She didn't faint again. She just turned white. After a while, she had a look at what was lying on our kitchen floor. Maybe she'd seen the body before, maybe not. She managed to make her phone call, and the police arrived. I wasn't there to greet them, though, because I'd managed to persuade her to furnish me with Mr. Baldwin's first name. It was Frank. She didn't know, or at least she said she didn't know, his address. I went back to my original employer to make my report in person.
What is it?
Barrie Craig, Mr. Griffith.
Just a moment. What on earth
You've got neighbors. I don't think they'd be interested.
I'm sorry. Come in.
Thank you.
I presume you have something to report, Craig, but isn't your zeal a little excessive? It's 1 a.m.
I know it's 1 a.m.
I can't imagine anything being so urgent that it requires waking me at this hour.
How about murder?
Are you drunk?
No.
Who was murdered?
Your former associate, Sam Jenkins.
That's impossible.
Why? Did you think he was immortal?
No, of course not, but this is quite a shock to me, Craig. Mind if I sit down?
Not at all. I don't understand why it's such a shock, though. You wanted to get rid of him.
I don't like the way you put that. Swenson and I were convinced he was selling the firm out. Therefore, we decided to take steps about it, but...
Steps short of murder?
Would we have employed you if violence was our intention?
That's the point. It's probably even a good one. But before I give you the rest of the report, who's Frank Baldwin?
Frank? Oh, yes, well, he was a rather well-known football player at one time. I think he was engaged to marry Lynn Walters. Nothing ever happened. Since then, he's been around. So far as I know, he hasn't earned an honest dollar since he left school.
He's grown a lot, though. Sam Jenkins was found dead in the kitchen of Lynn Walters' home.
Lynn Walters' home? Then he was seeing her.
Your ideas about that seem to have been correct. However, I'd like a little reassurance on one point.
What's that?
According to Lynn Walters, the reason you wanted him followed to her place, the reason you wanted me to turn in an official report to that effect, was because Jenkins' wife is insanely jealous. Again, according to Miss Walters, you were to use that report as a club over Jenkins' head to force him into leaving the firm.
Why, this is complete nonsense.
Okay. Now, since Jenkins is dead, I don't suppose that there's any further reason you'd want me to stay on in your employ, is there?
I suppose not. We'll send you a check in the morning.
Fine. And that, of course, means you're not my client anymore, Mr. Griffith.
Yes, I suppose that's correct.
I think it's fine, because now I can tell you that you're a liar. I didn't slam the door behind me, but I left. I didn't report to Swenson either. Griffith would take care of that. I went looking for a man named Frank Baldwin, who hadn't earned an honest dollar for years. A man who at one time had been engaged to Lynn Walters and might still be in love with her. A man who had known that the front door of her house was being watched, and who might have checked on the back door, the one that led to the kitchen. Hello, Baldwin.
Oh. Number 6 ball in the side pocket.
Hey, that was a nice shot.
Thanks.
Also proves you've got nerves of steel.
Look, run away. You annoy me.
I'm just beginning to annoy you, Baldwin. Don't you want to know how I found out your name?
I'm not interested.
You should be. When old girlfriends start talking about a man...
What old girlfriend?
Lynn Walters.
She told you my name? Lynn wouldn't have done that.
Maybe not, under ordinary circumstances. But a girl who suddenly discovers herself to be supplied with a corpse in the kitchen is likely to lose her head.
What are you trying to give me?
A bad time. How am I doing?
You still got that gun?
I've got it, but it's in my pocket now. I'm not working, you might say.
Let's go for a walk, huh?
Sure. Oh, leave your cue stick here, though.
I'm terribly absent-minded. Come on.
Kind of late, isn't it?
Depends on the hours you keep. Listen, I gotta know. You said something about a corpse in Lynn's kitchen. Who was it?
Who do you think?
I'm not thinking, I'm asking.
Okay, don't get excited. It's no secret by this time. Sam Jenkins.
You sure of that?
I saw him.
There's something wrong.
Because there was a corpse, you mean? Or because it was the wrong corpse?
I don't think we're going to carry this conversation on any further. I gotta go pay a couple of visits.
Okay. But, before you do, Baldwin...
Yeah?
Have you got any reason to worry about a parked car down the block a bit?
A parked car? Why should I worry about it?
I don't know, but the motor is idling. The lights are off. Could be waiting for somebody. Maybe you, maybe me.
You're just wasting time. My time. So long.
So long.
Baldwin! Baldwin!
He could be paged from now to doomsday, Mr. Baldwin, but he wouldn't answer. Mr. Baldwin hadn't known it, but he had a lot to worry about. Now he had no more worries. A half-dozen bullets had cut him almost in half.
Barry,
Yes, Lieutenant Rogers?
you think you could spot the car if you saw it again?
Well, in view of the fact that they make 100,000 like it every year in Detroit, I might have a little trouble.
They wouldn't have been using their own license plates.
Professionals never do.
Barry, does this tie up with the Jenkins killing?
Of course it does.
We didn't hold the Wallace girl. Maybe we should have.
Did you have any good reasons to?
One advantage of being a policeman is you don't always have to have a good reason, at least not for a while.
You mean Lynn Walters could have arranged to have Mr. Baldwin knocked off?
I mean, she could have done it herself.
Oh, it's a possibility, but I don't think so.
Well, maybe we didn't have evidence that she killed Jenkins, Barry. We don't have evidence that she didn't either.
How long ago did you release the girl?
An hour ago, maybe.
Well, that's too bad. She would have had enough time. Have you got any men on her at the house?
Plainclothesmen out in front.
There's also a back door.
I know that, but I didn't expect this.
Neither did Baldwin. You won't need me now, will you?
What good would it do me if I said yes?
Thanks, Trav. I'm going to visit Lynn Walters.
In the spirit of good, clean fun?
Not exactly.
Preventive medicine?
Not that either. I think maybe I might acquire a new client.
Oh, Mr. Craig.
Mr. Craig, mind if I come in?
I guess not. After tonight, I very much doubt I'll ever mind anything again.
You'll get over it. That is, if you haven't been going around killing people.
I didn't kill Sam. Wait, you said people. Does that mean...
Yes. It means someone else has been killed, too. I hope it comes as a surprise to you.
Well, of course it does. I don't even know who... Who was it?
Judging from all indications, Sam Jenkins was a boyfriend of yours.
He was a friend.
All right, we'll accept that version for the time being. You had another friend at one time.
Frank Baldwin?
Yes. This doesn't seem to be a very good season for friends of yours.
You mean it was Frank who died?
Let's not be delicate. I mean it was Frank who was murdered.
I suppose I should react more strongly to that. I can't. I'm completely numb.
If that's the truth, I think you ought to hire yourself a detective. You're going to need one.
Why?
Sam Jenkins was killed in your house at a time when you could have been alone with him. Frank Baldwin could have been killed by anyone. Perhaps it's only a coincidence that he died on the same night that Sam Jenkins did. The district attorney is likely to start brooding about that and decide it isn't a coincidence at all.
I can't pretend I don't understand what you're saying. I can't pretend that I care very much either.
Were you in love with Jenkins?
I've already told you he was a friend, a good friend, but nothing more.
In that case, tomorrow morning we'll find you feeling a lot different. Hire me for tomorrow morning, huh?
Well, all right. But why are you so insistent? You need the work?
No, but I've been used in this thing. I don't like being used. I need the standing that having you as my client would give me. Let's say the fee will be $1 per day, no expenses.
That's very cheap.
I don't think it's going to take very long. Now tell me that you didn't kill Jenkins and Baldwin again, please.
I didn't kill Sam Jenkins. I didn't kill Frank Baldwin.
Thanks. You know what the funny part of it is?
What?
99 people out of 100 would be sure that you're lying. I think you're telling the truth. I left. I had a couple of calls to make. I didn't think either of them would take very long. At the salary I was working for, I couldn't afford to let them. Mr. Griffith wasn't at home. It was kind of late for a dignified gentleman like Griffith to be abroad, especially in view of the fuss he'd made when I waked him earlier. Then I thought that perhaps tender solicitude had touched his heart. Perhaps he had gone to console Sam Jenkins' widow. I decided I'd go help him.
Who's there?
The name is Craig, Mrs. Jenkins.
What do you want?
Among other things, I don't want to be shouting through a shut door.
I'm sorry, but it's really quite late.
You're still up.
I don't think that's of any particular concern of yours.
It is. I'm looking for Mr. Griffith.
He's not here.
Sure he's here. His car is parked out front.
Oh, I guess you'd better come in.
Thank you.
Who is that?
Oh, hello, Mr. Griffith.
And why did you...
I saw your car parked in front.
I didn't take my car. I used a taxi. Never mind. Very clever, Craig.
Thanks.
I don't know exactly what you had in mind coming here. You're not employed by me anymore, you know.
I know.
Therefore, you're off the case, and...
Sorry, I'm not off the case. I've just changed employers.
What are you talking about?
To be precise and personal, I'm talking about Lynn Walters.
Miss Walters hired you?
At my suggestion, she did. She got a bargain.
What did she hire you to do?
To make sure that she doesn't wind up taking the rap for 2 murders, Mr. Griffith.
Oh, yes? Are you sure that she didn't commit them?
Of course I'm sure.
Why?
She told me she didn't.
Now, this is ridiculous. I suggest you get out of here immediately, Craig.
Before you call the police?
That's right. If you persist in annoying Mrs. Jenkins and myself...
The trouble is, Mr. Griffith, I'm afraid I'm going to have to annoy you a lot more before I leave.
Tom, I can't take much more of this after Sam's death and all.
Mrs. Jenkins, I don't like to intrude on a lady's grief, but I'm afraid I'll have to. You see, immediately after I terminated my employment with Mr. Griffith, I called him a liar.
I don't care what...
You'd better. Griffith and Swenson hired me to find proof against your husband. Proof that he was betraying professional secrets to a competitive firm. I watched your husband for a while and found that he went nowhere near any such competitor. I did discover, however, that he was paying visits to Lynn Walters. When I reported this to Mr. Griffith, he was delighted. He wanted me to make a final check and turn in a report. Lynn Walters is not a business firm.
Very well, so she isn't. I fail to see why you have to tell us all this.
I didn't discover until I was already on the case that this was a matter of domestic relations and possibly divorce. So far as Lynn Walters knew, she thought that my report would be used to blackmail Sam Jenkins into quitting the firm and giving up his interest in it. But since I find Mr. Griffith here, it becomes obvious that that report was to be used in divorce proceedings. Presumably, the idea was to get rid of Jenkins, not only from the firm, but from your life as well.
Tom, will you do something about this man?
Now, look here, Craig. Even if what you say should be true...
Thanks for telling me that it is. We come to something else. While I was watching outside Lynn Walter's house, a man named Frank Baldwin came along and made an effort to get me to leave. I didn't budge. Frank Baldwin himself left.
Well, that's of no interest.
You keep saying that. Why? Because all this is important?
I fail to see what can be important about it.
Just this. His effort to make me move was intentionally weak. He didn't intend to succeed. Furthermore, he knew who I was, which meant that he had been hired to annoy me, but not to move me from my position. Hired by someone who knew that I was being employed to watch Sam Jenkins. The purpose of his approaching me was to make me think that it was Lynn Walters. But Lynn Walters didn't know that Jenkins was being followed. Neither did Jenkins. I know my business well enough to be sure of that.
Are you implying that I hired this man Baldwin?
I'm implying that the murderer of Sam Jenkins and Frank Baldwin hired him.
Why, all this is nonsense. If Baldwin had been hired by the murderer of Sam Jenkins, why did that murderer kill Baldwin, too?
For a simple reason, safety. Whoever did the murders was someone who wanted to be very sure of things. Someone who didn't trust legal processes and divorce courts. Someone who didn't trust the hired allegiance of a thug like Baldwin.
I thought you were an honest fool, Craig. I'm beginning to think now that you're not a fool, and perhaps not honest.
That's why you're waving that gun at me?
Yes, I just want to be sure.
The murderer wanted to be sure, too. But how sure is she? How sure can she ever be?
You mean Lynn Walters did kill Sam?
Lynn Walters isn't the only woman in the case.
Tom, did you hear what he said?
Why, the man's raving.
When Baldwin was gunned down, I was within 100 feet of him. He didn't die immediately. Before he did, he had a chance to tell me who had hired him to serve as a red herring. Who had hired him to keep me pinned out in front of the house while she was killing her husband and back.
No man could have lived to tell you that with half a dozen bullets in him.
How did you know how many bullets he had in him, Mrs. Jenkins, unless you'd shot him yourself? Mr. Griffith, I suggest that you have just captured a dangerous murderer. Keep that revolver on her until the police get here, and, my congratulations. I wasn't particularly happy about the case. I never am when it's a question of murder. No matter how well justice may be served, people have died. Sometimes unnecessarily and always violently. I felt depressed. I wondered if Lynn Walters felt depressed, too. I decided to go visit her and match depressions. Funny thing, as soon as I decided to do that, I began to feel a lot less depressed. I wonder why.
You have been listening to William Gargan in another exciting transcribed mystery drama from the adventures of Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Tonight's story, Kitchens Come with Knives, was written by Lou Vittis. Next week, it's the strange story titled Corpse with a Pedigree, about which Barrie Craig has this to say.
Next week, a professor who marries a shimmy dancer loses face generally, and his life particularly, when a trio of pedigreed heirs find that they have only homicide in common. Good night, folks. See you next week.
Coleman, America's leader in modern automatic home heating equipment, and the National Broadcasting Company have brought you William Gargan, starring as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Featured in the role of Lynn was Barbara Weeks. Don Pardo speaking. Every 20 seconds through the year, a fire breaks out in the United States. These fires kill 11,000 persons each year and destroy $7 million worth of property. Protect your home from fire by following these simple safety precautions. Don't smoke in bed or throw away lighted cigarettes. Clean out closets, attics, basements. Repair defective electric equipment and replace worn or frayed wiring. Fires in the home, your home, can and must be prevented.
Tonight, listen to Dragnet on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, this episode had a great hard-boiled feel to it. And again, some nice twist in the mysteries all the way right up to the end. And this is one of the better episodes we've seen in the last few months. Well, we turn now to our listener comments and feedback. This one comes from Robert, who writes in, thank you for doing such a great job. I find the shows much better, and it's great to hear about the show. I'm a member of the Mystery Clubhouse, but I like your shows better. Thanks so much for your comments, Robert, and that will actually do it for today. Not quite. I forgot to mention the shows that were in the middle. Some pretty interesting titles here. Dig Another Grave, Murder to Music, Final Pavement, and Murder Ring. Hopefully some of those will turn up in the future, and when they do, we'll bring them to you here. All right, well, remember, we do the Old Time Dragnet podcast at radiodragnet.com. Every Saturday, a new episode of Dragnet posted. And the Old Time Radio Superman show at laserandsword.com. Well, we'll be back tomorrow with Candy Matson. And then next Monday, another adventure with Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. This episode is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. Thank you so much for your support. I want to especially thank Matt, who sent along a very nice donation. Actually, the second we've received via postal mail. Most of the donations we've received have been through PayPal, but I know a lot of people prefer to do it through the mail, so we've got that option available. And thanks so much for your donation, Matt, and we'll be sending along access to our premium site, which we do for all donations of $7 or more. All right, well, now it's time for today's episode of Candy Matson, and this is the New Year's episode from December 17th of 1949. Here is The Valley of the Moon.
Hello, Yukon 28209. Yes, this is Candy Matson.
The National Broadcasting Company presents Candy Matson, Yukon 28209. This is the start of a mystery. Our main character is a San Francisco girl detective, Candy Matson. There are others in the show, too. An Inspector Mallard, a gent who calls himself Rembrandt Watson, a cowboy, a dude ranch owner, and a gal the casting agency assured us was a dowager, slightly boozy. There are a few other voices along the way, too. I think that has all the makings of a good mystery show, don't you? Well, let's go on from here and find out. So, here's Candy Matson.
Like the man just said, this is the start of a mystery. Christmas had me completely tuckered out. No one had invited me to the Rose Bowl game or the East-West at Keysar, so I decided to make like a bear and hibernate over New Year's. It worked out perfectly because, as my old friend Rembrandt Watson put it,
you wish to greet 1950 in some remote spot? Is that the idea, Dove?
That's the idea, Ducky.
I have the perfect place for you. A dude ranch, reasonable, just on the other side of Sonoma, in the Valley of the Moon.
Valley of the Moon. New Year's Eve in the Valley of the Moon. Rembrandt, that sends me.
Good. Maybe it can send us both. I have a commission to take some pictures up there for a brochure they're putting out. I have to be there tomorrow afternoon.
Yes?
I see you're nibbling at the bait. I shall be blunt. Why don't you drive me up?
You've won your point. I'll pick you up tomorrow at what time?
Let us be spectacular and say high noon.
High noon.
And do bring some cash, will you, girl? I'm a little short.
I thought you were going up there on a commission.
Yes, I am. But they have some simply divine one-arm devices.
And
there goes me commission.
Naturally, a girl has to look right to welcome in the new year. That gave me the perfect excuse to squander a few hard-earned dollars and cents on some lovely clothes that didn't make sense but cost dollars. The afternoon was aging gracefully, a little gray here and a wrinkle or two there. So I stopped for a parfait, very dry and no olive. With that mission accomplished, I headed back over Kearny Street, and as I wheeled past Portsmouth Square and the Hall of Justice, I realized I hadn't seen my chum Mallard in quite some time. Inspector Ray Mallard of San Francisco Homicide. A very smart cop who can smell a clue a mile away. But when it comes to me, he very conveniently carries his own fog around.
Well, Candy, my little cupcake.
Mallard, dear, you called me your little cupcake.
Sure, it's still the Christmas season. Let's be charitable, I always say. What do you always say?
In a situation like this, nothing. I just exude a stream of steam from the top of my head.
Very cute. What brings you around our boarding house?
You, darn it. I thought you might like to know I'm going away for a week.
What did they get you on? Petty theft?
Yeah, and they got me as I tried to make my getaway on a tricycle. But for your information, Inspector, I'm spending my New Year's Eve up in the Valley of the Moon.
Oh, want to get away from it all, huh?
That's right. You in particular.
In that case, may I get you a midwinter vacation off to a flying start?
You can try. How?
I'm not working tonight. How's about a movie?
You've got yourself a date. What's playing?
Tex A-Cup.
That's what I thought. Where's Tex and his faithful horse Mustard playing this time?
Oh, at the plaza. And the pictures of Pip, too.
I'll bet.
I read all about it.
Yeah.
Hot lead over Laredo. Look, here's the ad in the paper.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. Show me.
There.
Yeah.
A searing epic of the West's wild grandeur. Men as rugged as the mountains.
Whee.
A singing saga of scorching bullets, strumming guitars, and supple senoritas. And starring the champ of the Cowboys, Tex A-Cup. Now, what more can one ask in a motion picture?
Popcorn.
Oh, we'll have that, too.
I went home, did some packing for the trip the next day, fixed something to eat, and then changed into my spurs that jingle-jangle for Tex A-Cup. Mallard arrived, we took off. We got to the early show, so we managed to get some good seats. Of course, he wasn't kidding about the popcorn. He got a great big bag of that. We fumbled our way down the darkened aisle and found a place to sit. The movie was almost over.
Tex, the whole thing looks like a gosh dang frame up to me. They must have snuck off with them head of cattle and over into Inyo. Yup, I reckon.
Here, Candy. These seats are okay.
They must have gone that way, all right.
Sure.
Only one thing.
Oh, sorry, lady.
So am I, Pete. What's happened to Tex? Last time I seen her, she was leaving.
Seats are okay. Oh, have some popcorn?
No.
I wonder where the sheriff is. He said he was going to be riding by directly. Oh, probably.
What?
I said sure is good popcorn.
Oh.
Sure you don't want some?
What?
I said, are you sure you don't want some popcorn?
I keep saying no. No, thank you. I don't want any popcorn, Mallard, dear.
If you'll pardon me, I'm going home and catch this on television.
Like seeing not with Tex missing this way. I understand your feeling all about it.
After Hot Lead over Laredo, I suffered through 6 reels of a bouncy college picture. Freshmen looked like holdovers from the early days of the war. Then a newsreel, then a cartoon, then the trailer, then again Tex A-Cup. So we got out about midnight, and I drove Mallard back to the Hall of Justice. As he got out of the car...
Well...
Oh, now that's what I call sharp dialogue. On leaving the lady, all he can say is, well.
Oh, nothing personal, Candy.
Now he laughed at me.
Well, I was just thinking. You're going up to the Valley of the Moon for a rest. Is that the idea?
Well, yes. That and trying to get away from Tex A-Cup.
I know you too well, Candy. You're not going to have any rest. Look at the headline on that paper in the newsstand there. Man missing in Sonoma mystery.
And Sonoma can have it. Mallard, dear, if I so much as step inside the Sonoma city limits, you can come and lead me away quietly.
You know something? I'm going to remember that.
Mallard waved goodbye and went inside. I didn't like the way he said that. But I had other things to think about, such as getting home and getting some sleep. So I did. And in the morning, I drove over to California Street, picked up Rembrandt. We headed out across the Golden Gate Bridge up towards Sonoma. The Valley of the Moon wasn't too far, a couple of hours of leisurely driving with time out for readjustments, and you're there. Then another 8 miles north and east, and there was the Dude Ranch.
This is it, dear. What do you think of it?
Perfect, just perfect. Why, Rembrandt, dear, it's a real ranch.
Of course, dear, a going concern. They only take in guests as a sideline. Oh, here comes a man. I imagine that's Mr. Lawrence, the owner.
Oh, well, I'll shut off the motor.
Good morning.
How do you do, sir? Would you be Mr. Lawrence, perchance?
Yes, and you?
Watson. Rembrandt Watson. I'm here to take some pictures for you as we discussed via the Bell system.
Oh, yes, Watson. Right on time. That's good.
Oh, Candy, may I present Mr. Lawrence, owner of the Double L, Miss Matson.
How do you do?
Miss Matson was wondering if she could get accommodations for about a week, Mr. Lawrence.
What? Now, wait a minute, Watson. I'm paying you a substantial fee for this job, and I won't get stuck with non-paying guests.
Oh, I think you're laboring under a misapprehension.
Hold it, Rembrandt. Look, Mr. Lawrence, I'm here as a commercial guest. I'm not asking for any favors. And I doubt if I'd stay here now if you got down on your bended knuckles.
Oh, now, wait a second. I didn't mean it just that way. I apologize. It's only that, I've had some tough luck with people lately who seem to be only too intent on beating me out of their bills. Please, Miss Matson, excuse me. I just jumped to conclusions, that's all.
I think you set a new record for the jump.
Oh, forget it, Dove. Do.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you have room for me, Mr. Lawrence?
Why, yes, of course. A delightful cabin just in back of the ranch house. Not being prepared, it'll take about an hour to get it in shape. Will that be all right?
Yes, sure. We can eat in the meantime.
Fine. I'll get one of the boys to fetch your luggage. Oh, you can park over there under the old stables.
Oh, no garage?
Well, again, I have to apologize, Miss Matson. The garage is overloaded now. We have a sheriff's posse up here. The owner of the ranch next to mine disappeared yesterday afternoon. The sheriff is searching the entire vicinity around here.
Dove, are you all right? Well, speak to me, girl. What is it?
I'm all right. I just happened to think of something Mallard once said last night. I pushed my assembled horsepower into the stables where they belonged, and Rembrandt took me by the arm and steered me into the ranch house. It was a beautiful place, a tall cathedral-like living room with a crackling fireplace about the size of Dante's Inferno at one end. Off to this one side of the fireplace was a cozy little bar. The sun was just going over the yardarm, so I figured an old-fashioned would be quite in order. Old-fashioned was right. Behind the bar was the personification of an old-fashioned cowboy. Real chaps, a leathery face, and little squint wrinkles around his eyes. Well, howdy, Tex. It seems like as if I done saw you in a movie last night.
Howdy yourself, ma'am. Nope. Must have been two other cowboys. I've been working here at the Double L for almost 5 years.
My mistake, partner. Matson's the handle. What's yourn?
Is that the way cowboys talk, ma'am?
Yeah, Hollywood and Vine variety. I'm glad to know you.
Call me Jeff, Miss Matson.
Check. This is Rembrandt Watson. Rembrandt, Jeff.
Are those shoulders sewn in, or are they real?
I'm afraid they're real. Hiya, Mr. Watson.
You riding herd on all those bottles back there, Jeff?
Yep, for better or worse. Chang, our regular bartender, took powder on us day before yesterday.
Uh-oh. Seems like he picked a bad time to do a run-out.
Oh, you mean the missing gent from Glen Valley?
Glen Valley?
Yeah, that's the ranch next to ours. Yeah, I understand the police are on the lookout for Chang, but he didn't do it. He's a good, honest Chinese boy.
Even so, it's a bad time to disappear.
Oh, I admit it doesn't sound good. Well, if you folks won't mind the efforts of an amateur dispenser, what can I do for you?
An old-fashioned for me, Jeff.
Well, that I can try.
From now on, it gets easier. Rembrandt only wants the Coke.
Well, I can show you fix that all right. Uh-oh.
What's wrong?
Here comes the Duchess.
The Duchess?
Yeah, one of our guests. She's been out here about 2 weeks, and she can go through distilled spirits faster than a buzzsaw through mushy pine. And I hope you're prepared to talk.
Always, Jeff. Always.
Hello, my dear. You just arrived, haven't you?
Mentally or physically?
Oh, my! A sense of humor, too. I shall enjoy your company. Are you staying long?
Well, I'm not sure now. My plans are rather indefinite.
Oh, you'll love it here, Miss...
Matson. And may I present Mr. Rembrandt Watson?
Charmed, I'm sure.
As of now, me life has commenced.
Oh, you delightful lad. Jeff, dear boy, make me just a little nip for the old favorite, will you?
Sure. One painkiller coming up. Here's your old-fashioned, Miss Matson.
Thanks.
Mr. Watson, your coat.
Thanks, sir.
Young lady, you must be an actress. You look like one.
Well, no, I'm not.
I used to be an actress, a famous one. Mm-hmm. I toured all over the continent with the greatest of stars, the finest of plays.
Mm.
I was the toast of London, Berlin, Vienna.
Yes, but
I had kings and princesses worshipping at my feet.
Oh.
I was once the vortex of an international incident. But no matter. Those days are gone forever now.
And here's your tonic, Duchess.
What? Oh, thank you, Jeff. Well, as we used to say, here's to crime.
What was that?
It's a perfect toast. We have quite a mystery in this part of the country, young lady.
And so I keep hearing.
I can't understand. Mr. Ferguson had everything to live for.
Mr. Ferguson?
The man who owned Glen Valley. Wealthy, good-looking, in the best of health.
You seem to know quite a bit about the gentleman, Duchess.
Only what I read in the newspapers, and I can't understand it. Well, as I said, here's to crime.
We dallied at the bar for a few more moments. Then Jeff informed me that lunch was ready, and Rembrandt and I ate. We managed to duck the Duchess. I don't think I could have taken her with food. After lunch, Lawrence showed me to my cabin. It was, as he said, delightful, with a warming flame in the fireplace. It was cheery and comfy, and I felt completely at home. Lawrence left to talk to Rembrandt. They were going to discuss the pictures he wanted taken. I felt like going riding, so I changed into my jeans and started to leave. But as I did...
Oh, sorry, Miss Matson. I didn't mean to frighten you.
Oh, well, you did, Jeff.
I was just about to knock when you opened the door.
Oh, that's okay. Was there something you wanted?
Well, you're in riding clothes, and that answers my question.
The question being?
Well, were you going riding? You see, the boss wanted to know if you were going riding, and if so, did you want some company? I usually show the guests around the acres.
Well, yes, that'd be wonderful.
And how long do you want to be out, Miss Matson?
About 3 hours or so.
Sure. In that case, we'll take the deluxe tour, over across the back 60 and up through Manzanita Canyon. You know, when we get up to the top of Iron Mountain, you can see the whole Valley of the Moon.
That's for me, Jeff. Let's hit the leather. Jeff was obviously born to the saddle and came into this world teething on a tether rein. You couldn't tell where the horse left off, and Jeff began, a real rider. We nosed out through the clump of ranch buildings and on into open space. I had a fine horse under me, and I really felt like I was living. We'd been riding about an hour when we came across a little stream. Jeff indicated we should stop and water the horses. How long have you been a cowboy, Jeff?
Oh, about as long as I can remember.
Round here?
No, up around Montana. Then little by little, I gradually drifted further west. Hit upon the Valley of the Moon about 5 years ago. Fell in love with it. I've been here ever since. Reckon I'll stay here, too.
No, I don't blame you. Excuse me if I seem to be full of questions, Jeff.
Well, that's what I'm here for, ma'am.
Good. Because I've got a couple more. What's up that little draw there on the other side of the creek?
Nothing but a tangle of manzanita. Scrub oak and brush.
Pretty hard to get through there,
Hard. It's impossible. Well, I've seen chipmunks get fouled up in that draw.
Uh-huh. Then how come those boot prints are going right up there?
Boot prints? I don't see any. Well, hey, you're right.
Either boot prints or the result of shoes with Cuban heels.
Well, now, there's a strange one.
Exactly what I thought, too.
Say, you know, something just dawned on me. Matson. Didn't I see your pictures in the Frisco papers a couple of weeks back?
San Francisco.
Beg pardon?
San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, San Francisco. Excuse me. Oh, sure. You know, the way you was asking those questions just now, it hit me. You're a detective.
I'm afraid you got me, partner.
Uh-oh, wait a minute, Miss Matson. Listen.
Let's duck, Jeff.
Too late now.
What's that? Well, whoa there. What are you doing over this way, Jeff?
Hi, boss. Well, say, you give us quite a little start.
You haven't answered my question.
Oh, we just stopped to water the horses, Mr. Lawrence. Miss Matson here's a mighty fine rider. She wanted to make the big circle of the ranch.
Well, you certainly picked a fine time to do it.
Whoa.
The sheriff's posse is out around this way. You're liable to get shot. Now get back to the ranch, pronto.
Just a moment, Mr. Lawrence. You've been uncivil ever since I got here, and I don't like to be dictated to.
It's like being on board ship, Miss Matson. The captain is the law. I'm the owner of this property, and you'll do as I say. Now get moving, both of you. And if you don't like my attitude, you can leave any time you want.
Leave? Now?
Yes.
Oh, no, Mr. Lawrence. I'm beginning to find your ranch extremely interesting. Jeff and I wheeled our horses about and sifted back to the ranch house. I looked back a couple of times, but there was no sign of Lawrence. I was mad, and Jeff must have sensed it because he was smart enough to keep his mouth closed. As I dismounted at the stables and headed for the house, he waved me a forlorn adios and disappeared. Just as I went through the door, I was greeted by Rembrandt.
Oh, there you are, Doug. I was about to institute a searching party for you.
Oh, I was safe enough until I gained the grips with a thing called my own temper. What have you been doing, Ducky?
I've had a most delightful afternoon, Candy dear. I've been playing canasta with the Duchess.
Canasta? Ooh, you don't know how to play canasta.
I know that, and you know it, but I don't think the Duchess does. She celebrates each hand with a hefty pull on her bitters.
How'd you manage to make any sense out of the game?
That has me puzzled, too. All I do is put down some cards, any cards, and she'd congratulate me.
Maybe you've got a green thumb for the game. Incidentally, I thought you were going to be taking pictures this afternoon.
Called off on account of the law.
Hmm?
Mr. Lawrence had to ride out into the lone prairie and deliver a phone message to the sheriff. He's making like ghost riders in the sky out there. Do go and change, dear. You smell of horses.
Yes, I know.
Oh, and incidentally, we're to have a soiree this evening. 2 more guests arrived. The cook tells me there's to be a little entertainment after dinner.
Good. Around here, anything will be an improvement. I didn't tell Rembrandt I was going to change, so it wasn't a fib when I stayed in my jeans. I went back to the stables, got the boy to rig me another horse, and headed out toward that creek again. I rode faster this time, because I'd noticed something else there besides the footprints. It was a battered 10-gallon hat on the far side of the creek with studded initials JF on the crown. But when I got there, the cupboard was bare, but good. Not only was the 10-gallon hat gone, but the boot prints had been completely obliterated. I stayed for another few minutes of study and frustration and then went back to the ranch. I changed, met Rembrandt, had dinner, and then we relaxed in the living room.
Oh, Dove, I'm so full. This outdoor living makes me ravenous.
Outdoors? I don't think you've stepped out of this building since we got here.
Well, then it's the thought of outdoor living that does it. Oh, they're the new arrivals over by the fire.
Did you meet them?
No. They looked at me as though I might soil their escutcheon, whatever that is.
I can see what you mean.
Hi, folks. Do you enjoy your dinner?
Oh, hello, Jeff. Yes, it was wonderful.
Has anybody seen Mr. Lawrence or the Duchess?
We haven't seen Lawrence, no. The Duchess is over there writing a letter.
Oh. Well, I hope you'll all drop around in about an hour. I'm going to do some singing and a little guitar plucking.
Is there anything you don't do, Jeff?
No, very little. But none of them too darn good either.
Sure, we'll be here. Won't we, Rembrandt?
What? Oh, yes, I go with 3 diamonds and a joker.
Jeff left. Rembrandt snoozed, and I threw a wrap around my shoulders and took a stroll around the patio. The air felt good. I went over to my cabin, picked up some cigarettes, and started back. But as I came close to the cabin opposite mine... Oh! It was the Duchess. I'd recognize those tones and groans anywhere. Duchess?
Yes?
This is Candy Matson. Are you all right?
Yes, I'm all right. Touch of indigestion, I should imagine.
Oh, is there anything I can do? Can I get you something?
Oh, what a dear thing you are. No, I'll be all right. I have these attacks all the time. You run along and enjoy yourself. Jeff is going to sing. He's such a dear boy.
But you're sure you'll be okay?
Yes, dear. You go along.
Oh, here. Now, let me put a blanket over you. Here, and take off your shoes. You'll be ever so much more comfortable.
Oh, you're so sweet. So pretty. You remind me of myself when I was young. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I tucked the old girl in and left her to dream of the past and went back to the ranch house. Jeff was just pulling up a chair in front of the fireplace.
Well, you'll have to understand, folks, I'm not a singer. I don't pretend to be. I just warble along the way I feel. Now, is there any particular kind of cowboy tune you'd like to hear?
No, Jeff. Why don't you just sing a favorite of yours?
Good idea. Just do what comes naturally.
Okay, you asked for it. Let's see. Here's one I think you might like. Oh, bury me not on the lone prairie where the coyotes howl and the wind blows free in a narrow grave just 6 by 3. But bury... Oh, hiya, boss. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff. Go right on with what you were doing.
No, Mr. Lawrence. You arrived just in time. The entertainment's over.
What? What are you talking about, Miss Matson?
I said the show's over. Is the sheriff around?
Yes, he and his men are outside. They're just leaving for the night.
You better call him back, right now. The Duchess is dead in her cabin.
What?
Poisoned.
Wait a minute.
Sheriff! Sheriff Hobbs!
Is that you, Lord?
That's right. Can you and your men come back for a spell? Seems we have more trouble.
Okay. We'll be over as soon as we tie up the horse.
Now then, what's this all about?
Well, I could tell you, Lawrence, but I think it'd be more proper coming from the star himself. Don't you think so, Jeff?
Looks like this is it, doesn't it? You know, you're smart, Miss Matson. Like they say in that ad, never underestimate the power of a woman.
That's right. That letter the Duchess wrote proves your point.
What? How'd you get hold of that letter? I thought she wrote a duplicate. Is that it?
Like you say, never underestimate the power of a woman.
Wait a moment. I don't understand what's going on here.
Go ahead, Miss Matson. You tell me. Looks like I'm not the star any longer.
Well, Lawrence, up to about 2 weeks ago, you had as nice and gentle a cowpoke working for you as there ever was. Then the Duchess arrived. She wasn't kidding when she claimed to have mingled with nobility, important people. As a matter of fact, she had an inside tip about your ranch and the one next door, Ferguson's place, Glen Valley. Didn't you receive a fantastic offer for your property from a big wine company just recently, Lawrence?
Why, yes, I did.
So did Ferguson. They were going to merge the two places and make it one of the world's largest vineyards.
I didn't know about that part of it.
But the Duchess did. She wanted in on the ground floor. That's why she came out here. She tried to talk business with Ferguson, but he'd have none of it. So, in one of her boozy moments, she hit upon the idea of doing away with Ferguson. But she didn't have the nerve to go through with it. That's when she approached Jeff here and cut him in on the deal. Jeff was tired of the poor but honest cowboy routine, saw a chance to make some heavy sugar, and went along with the gag. Right, Jeff?
She's got it straight so far, boss.
Jeff, I can't believe my ears.
Oh, that's nothing. Just wait a while. Jeff and the Duchess were out riding one afternoon when, by chance, Ferguson rode up, too, just where the boundaries of the two ranches meet. While the Duchess talked to Ferguson, Jeff sneaked around and back and bashed in his head. They hauled him up to that draw where you bumped into us this afternoon. I know now why you ordered us out of there. On the other side of that snarl of brush and manzanita, there's a quicksand pit. That is now Ferguson's permanent residence.
This is terrible. Terrible.
In the hurry to dispose of your late neighbor, they left shoe prints along the bank of the creek. And they also overlooked Ferguson's hat with his initials on it. I'm mighty glad you came by when you did, Laura. After I had noticed the boot prints, I think Jeff was going to dump me into the quicksand, too.
You're right again. After the boss sent us back in, I sort of figured to get you tonight instead.
And then, Lawrence, you were going to be next. Because in your will, you would name Jeff as your sole heir. Is that right?
That's right. I loved him like a son.
Then the Duchess and Jeff could have swung a hard bargain with that wine outfit. All very smooth except for one thing.
One thing? I'm kind of curious about that one thing, Miss Matson.
Alcohol, Jeff. It's not only lifting to begin with, but also acts as a depressing agent. The Duchess had been imbibing all day, and after dinner she arrived at that point of depression, realized what a horrible thing she had done, and she wrote the full story about the wine company and Jeff's duplicity, and made a copy. You were afraid of that yourself, Jeff. That's when you went out and slipped the old girl a lethal Mickey. I heard her groaning and went in to investigate. She said it was indigestion, but I knew differently. Her breath. And I knew, too, that she'd be dead within 5 minutes. Then I saw her shoes, Cuban heels with mud caked on the inner side of the arch. That's when I had a hunch the letter she was writing had a definite meaning. You overlooked it, Jeff. I found it. Where only a woman would think of looking. Tucked inside her bosom. I'm sorry, Lawrence. I had you figured wrong from the start. I was the one who was wrong. You aren't hard at all. You're soft as putty. Well, Jeff, here comes the sheriff.
Yeah, so I see. Well, I'm ready for him. You can't beat a royal flush with a pair of deuces. Or should I say, dunces. Go. There won't be any fuss. And all of a sudden, it dawns on me. People should accept their lot. If you're born to be a cowboy, just stay a cowboy. And if you're born a millionaire, don't fight that either. Well, goodbye, Miss Matson. And I'm glad the boss happened along when he did, 'cause I don't think quicksand would look good on me.
Like Jeff said, he went quietly. No trouble. Too bad he wasn't content to be just a ranch hand, simple and unspoiled. Because as Rembrandt had noticed, he did have wonderful shoulders. He played the guitar, he sang, and he made fine old-fashioned. All in all, a very nice guy, except for two vices, hitting from the behind and poisoning. The Valley of the Moon? Oh, I'll go back. It's lovely. After all, one man with a snarled brain can't undo the work of the original master painter.
Listen again next week at this same time. For excitement and adventure, just dial
Candy Matson, Yukon 28209.
Heard tonight were Helen Fleeb as the Duchess, Lou Tobin as Lawrence, and Clancy Hayes as Jeff. Henry Leff is Inspector Mallard and Jack Thomas as Rembrandt. The program stars Natalie Masters as Candy and is written and produced by Monty Masters. Sound effects were created by Bill Brownell and Jay Rendon. Eloise Rowan is heard at the organ. The characters in tonight's story are entirely fictitious, and any resemblance to actual people is purely coincidental. The program came to you from San Francisco. Dudley Manlove speaking. You are tuned for the stars on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, December 17th is an odd air date for a New Year's episode. But that is what has been verified through Digital Deli, so we'll go with that. I think one challenge with Candy Matson in being timely in terms of the airing episodes was the show was always constantly being shuffled about, as we talked about a few weeks back. So it could be that the episode was intended to be aired later, but just because of all the shuffling around, they just wanted to keep the scripts in order. I actually toyed with using the part where she annoyingly says San Francisco when Jeff says Frisco in the intro to the show. I thought I would, jokingly say Frisco and then play her annoyed response of San Francisco. But she wasn't as annoyed as I remembered when it came time to record it, so I didn't opt for that particular joke. This was a pretty fun episode. As usual, it didn't take itself, incredibly seriously, but it did have a kind of a message in the end about. I like particularly the last line about the Valley of the Moon. So this was another just fun mystery with Candy Matson. Well, now we turn to listener comments from Podcast Alley. And a simple one from Dan, keep 'em coming. Thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate your support and appreciate everybody's vote this month on Podcast Alley. We've come up pretty high in the standings. So encourage you to, if you've not voted, to cast your vote at podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. Well, this episode of the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio is brought to you by the support of our listeners. Thank you so much for all your great financial support. It's truly appreciated. Today's episode of Let George Do It, we head back to the show's normal airing order and August the 28th of 1950. I should note that it was a New Year's Day show done on January 1st, 1951, but that is missing. So we're going to play today's episode. It's one I've heard a couple of times because it's on two separate radio archives, Let George Do It collections. It's called High Card. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
Personal notice. Danger's my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Standard Oil Company of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. High Card, another adventure of George Valentine.
Well, it's 10 o'clock already, gentlemen. Shouldn't we... I mean, my watch says 10. Chester has the cards and...
Sure, what are we waiting for? We're going to do it, let's get...
No! Ames. Toto, this is crazy. It's insane.
It was your idea, wasn't it, Norton?
Yes, but a man's guilt is no more to be bandied about.
Oh, get off the word.
There's the good name of the man to be thought of afterwards.
Let's get it over with now.
All right. How about you?
Huh? What? He's had a good many, Mr. Norton. I'm not sure that
I'm all right. Yes, I'm all right.
Okay, give me those cards.
Spread them out on the table.
I know what I'm doing. Well, hurry up, huh? Get it over with, the four of us.
We'll need a piece of paper. Envelope here in your jacket. You mind?
Of course I do, if it's got my name on it.
Valentine. George Valentine.
What?
Oh, your wife's letter. From somebody named Valentine.
If I'd know her friend.
Here's a blank sheet of club stationery. Couldn't get on with it.
Dear Mrs. Ames, I am so sorry to hear of your concern over your husband. Naturally, I will do whatever I can to help. Sincerely, George Valentine.
You mean
But...
Concern. How do you like...
For heaven's sake, stop the stalling, both of you. Will you get...
All right. I draw one. Go on, draw a card.
Me? Go on. So.
All right. 9 of diamonds.
Yeah. Norton?
9 of clubs.
9 again? Give me one of those. Jack. Diamonds.
All right, Chester.
Huh?
Your turn. Draw.
Oh, I'm all right. Draw? Oh, yes.
King. King of hearts, look. Chester drew the king of hearts.
Shut up.
You understand, Chester. High card.
Yes. Yes, the paper.
Here. You can use the pen.
I'm all right. I, Jeffrey Chester, hereby confess 1 year ago to this date, it was I who murdered Miss Dorothy Pullman.
After 10 o'clock now, Chester.
I'd like to have a drink or two. I'll have to run down to my boarding house. There's a bill I should pay.
The watchman's spare gun is in the locker room, and it would look better if you did it at the same place that...
Leave him alone, Salto.
I'm all right. I could run downtown first, then come back, have the drinks, if I could borrow your car, Mr. Ames.
Sure, Chester. Go over and get your money card. Sure.
Thank you. You don't have to worry, any of you. I'll be back. The club bar, drinks. We always had two, she and I. But I'm all right. You can mail my confession of guilt to the police. I got the high card. I'll be dead by midnight.
Where are you, Sylvia? The big idea, that letter in my coat pocket. Miss Valentine, who is he?
Honey?
Oh, there you are. So sorry to hear of your concern over your husband. Of all the meddling...
Please.
Hello?
This is Mr. Valentine. Miss Brooks, my husband, Mr. Ames. Oh, how do you do, Mr. Ames?
My foot in my mouth. Just who are you?
Did you have a nice time, darling? Where have you been?
Huh? Oh, over to the club. Yeah, they let me in. Playing a little cards, that's all.
Look, Mr. Ames, I had a letter from your wife.
My wife
I'm
is
only...
leaving me. What difference does it make? Go on, get out. She's hired snoopers before, my friend.
You can't.
Oh, shut up.
Listen to me. You were beaten up the other night.
Get them out of here. Get yourself out of
Oh,
here.
no.
Stop it. No, listen.
What's the matter with you, friend?
Victor, that was your car, wasn't it? Driving away?
Yes. Yes, I loaned it to him. Somebody needs it for a while tonight. He's got some things to do.
Mr. Ames, I know I'm butting in, but your wife has been worried, and I'm only
Please.
here.
I'm going back over to the club. There's nothing anybody can do now except to make things worse.
What? Darling!
Send him home, Sylvia. I'll take care of myself.
I put your letter in his pocket on purpose, Mr. Valentine. He'll never listen to me or believe me. It was certainly an understatement when you said he was upset. Yes.
But you haven't said why yet. Now, just what's going on tonight, Mrs. Ames? Where's your husband really been?
I don't know. Playing cards, I guess. He doesn't generally, but no harm could come out of that, could it?
Maybe not. You said he'd been beaten up.
Oh, yes, I know he's in danger.
Go on. Your husband's a lawyer, isn't he?
He was until a year ago. His practice disappeared on him. What do you mean? Suspicion, distrust, whispers. This is a small town, Mr. Valentine. A very nice town. My husband used to be a very nice person.
What happened?
Have you ever heard of the Dorothy Folman murder case?
Well, yes, I think so. Only I don't remember.
It was never solved. She was murdered, beaten up. It was horrible. They never even found the weapon. Police, experts, everyone's been over it 1,000,000 times. It was a whole year ago. They'll never get a confession from anyone. Mrs. Ames, was your husband... My husband was very nearly tried for that murder.
Oh, I see. But then if he weren't tried, then...
There are people in this town who really believe that he killed her. Who'll always believe it. There wasn't any actual evidence. But the circumstances. Horrible, sordid, awful.
Now look, Mrs. Ames.
Mr. Valentine, we have children. I'm taking them away. I have to. He won't leave. He's so mixed up, bitter. I don't know what he'll do. It keeps getting worse and worse.
All right, now just take it easy. I'll go after him, see if there is anything I can do.
He'll never listen to me.
Brooksy, stay here, will you? Get her off to the train. Mrs. Ames, just tell me one thing, will you? Do you think your husband killed this Dorothy Folman?
Mr. Valentine, I don't want anything worse to happen. That's all.
I say, excuse me. You're Mr. Valentine also? George Valentine?
Yeah. I was looking for the club doorman.
My name is Norton. This is quite a pleasure. I've heard of you. Seen your name here and there.
Oh, is that so?
See here. Join me on the veranda for a cup of coffee, will you? Hospitality of our little club isn't
I'm
much.
sorry, Mr. Norton. I'm looking for a man named Ames.
Oh, yes. Victor Ames. Splendid chap. Haven't seen him in some time. Might be here later. We can read together.
I said I'm sorry, Mr. Norton.
Well, I certainly don't intend to be pushy. Oh, wait a moment. Perhaps I should be a bit more honest and say there's a little matter I'd like your advice on.
I'd still go looking for Mr. Ames.
Even if I said the little matter concerns Mr. Ames?
You twist my arm.
Then we can do better than the veranda, I think. People there. There's a lounge in the locker room.
All right. Through here?
To your left. Generally closed at night. But there we are.
Okay. Now, what's the story?
Nothing so very important, but sit down. Sit down.
How'd you know who I was out there?
Well, Ames had mentioned your coming.
You said you haven't seen him lately. Try again.
Is that a direction?
Hey, anybody in here? Locking up.
Blue shirt. Private police?
Just a minute. Yes. Let's go. Me? Well, what are you doing here?
What do you mean?
Stop it. Who are you?
Hey, what is it?
Jimmy, I found this man.
Break it up.
Break what up, John?
I found him in here. I left my wallet in my locker.
All right. Oh, it's you, Mr. Norton.
He was snooping, Jimmy. Now my wallet's gone. He took it. He must have.
Oh, brother.
What am I supposed to do?
Search him. Oh, but you won't have it, will he? That's not the way they work. But he's trespassing. You can lock him up for that. I'll see to it. Search Audrey.
I'm sorry, Mr. Norton.
What?
I said I'm sorry. You're not going to prepare anything. Good night.
Jimmy, my father was the founder of this club. When I issue an order to one of the paid employees, I expect that...
Yeah, sure. Issue away. Only someplace else, huh? I'll handle this end. Good night, Mr. Norton.
Jimmy, I have never in my life been... Good night. Yes. Good night.
Well, that was something.
Okay, bud. Hand it over.
What? Oh, now, wait a minute. You don't mean you believe that old school tie is gagging about... And still you boot him out?
The wallet, bud.
Oh, sure. Mine. Here. Credentials. The works. Enough.
Oh. Well, I didn't exactly figure. Valentine, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Only look, Buster, why? Why'd you treat him like that? Will him like lettuce before you even know what he had to say?
Because I have no use for the high and mighty Mr. Norton. And don't worry, I won't get in trouble either. He maybe don't know it, but he's being eased out the side door of this club anyway. All four of them are.
All four? Will you clear that up?
You ever hear the Dorothy Fullman murder? Well, that nice, dignified man there, that's Norton. For my money, he's the one that killed her.
All right, so you've got your opinion, Jimmy. It's just an opinion.
I'll stick to it, Mr. Valentine.
There wasn't any concrete evidence against either him or Victor Ames. And what did you mean, all four of them? And why did Norton want to stall me like that? That's all he was trying to do, keep me away from something.
You're the detective, mister.
Excuse me.
Huh? Hello, Mr. Chester.
Oh, Jimmy. Just standing here having a couple of drinks. I was downtown. Yes, that's done.
Looks like you've had enough.
Oh, no. I'm all right. I'm fine. I'm all right.
Sure, Mr. Chester. See him?
Oh, that guy?
He's one of them.
Say it faster, will you?
One of the four. Dorothy Pullman was murdered in her house just over the bluffs across the golf course.
Yeah?
They never got enough evidence. They never will. But the police did prove that it couldn't be anybody else. It had to be one of the four men mixed up with it.
Who are they?
Mr. Norton, Ames, big fool, always in trouble. Another man named Salto. He asked me, he couldn't have got to first base with her. And Chester there.
Oh, I get it. Not much left of Chester, is there?
All of them have changed. But he don't even know what he's doing anymore.
Nobody will confess, no evidence.
Oh, Jimmy, come here. Now, excuse me, Stewart, back to business.
No, I'm right behind you.
Huh?
That's Victor Ames with him, isn't it? With the steward? Sure it is.
Valentine.
Yeah, we catch up again, friend. It's a busy night.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Jimmy, there's trouble in here.
What?
The card room, the one with the back entrance. I put those cards in there myself just this evening.
Valentine, I've got to see you alone.
Hold it, will you? Go on, Stewart.
This deck of cards. Some men have been playing in there, apparently, or drawing high man or something.
Well, what is it? What's the matter?
Well, sir, it's more puzzling than anything else. At a club like this, someone was being dishonest. A rather hasty job, but here you see, this deck has been marked.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment.
In the average car, believe it or not, there are something like 7,000 separate parts. But no single unit needs more exacting care than the automatic transmission. It can be damaged by just the smallest amount of dirt. Low fluid level also would be harmful to this precision-made unit. Now, if your car has an automatic transmission, here's the way to keep it in order, to avoid trouble and expensive repair. Have this vital part checked every 1,000 miles at a standard station or independent Chevron gas station. Here, the men are carefully trained in the care of automatic transmissions. It's important to have the fluid drained and refilled at regular intervals. Superior care of automatic transmissions is another car-saver service at independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations where they say and mean we take better care of your car. Back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine.
9 of diamonds. 9 of clubs. Jack, diamonds. Your turn, Chester. Draw.
Yes, I'm king of hearts. I hereby confess 1 year ago it was I who murdered Miss Dorothy Foreman. I got the high card. I'll be dead by midnight. Be dead by midnight.
Only if your name is George Valentine, all you know is that Dorothy Foreman's murder case has never been solved. That there were 4 suspects, but the police have despaired of ever finding out who her murderer was. Yes, all you know is that Mrs. Ames was worried about the strange behavior of her husband. More recently, that 4 men have been playing cards in the back card room of the local club, and that the steward says the deck of cards is marked.
No, they can't be. Give me
Hey, take it easy, Mr. Ames. Let's see, Stewart.
They're not marked.
What's bothering you so much, Mr. Ames?
Kind of a crude job.
Yes, Jimmy, little ticks on the edges, like this. The person who did it could tell the cards, all right.
Get out of here, both of you, Jimmy Stewart.
Hey, slow down, Buster.
Look, I've got to see you, Valentine. I've got to see you alone.
Have you been sampling some of that stuff Chester uses, Mr. Ames? What's so important about
Chester? Chester.
Hey, where are you going, Miss Ames?
He was downtown. He's back now.
Look, Buster, will
the
you
bar.
please?
He's here in the bar. He's having those last 2 drinks.
Well, there you are.
Oh, hello, Angel.
Oh, Mr. Ames, I saw your wife at the station. She said to tell you.
Yes, of course. Where is he?
What?
Little guy, Brooks. He was in here a few minutes ago.
He was having a couple of drinks.
Yeah, he's gone now.
Well, I did see somebody leaving just when I came in. He looked like he could use a little sleep.
It's 5 minutes to 12.
Time for you to clear it up, friend. Where's Chester gone? What's happening tonight?
Could have been any one of us. I mean, the cards marking them. But I didn't try to save my own skin. I would have gone through it if I'd been high man.
What on earth?
I'm trying to remember. The watchman's spare gun, that was it.
Quit fooling, Buster. What?
Yeah, the closet, the back hall. Come on, hurry, will you? The watchman's gun, that was it.
Only the cupboard was bare.
He's taken it already. Chester.
Certainly no gun in here.
We drew. High man. He had the king of hearts. Little Chester, the weakest one in the whole bunch. Didn't even seem to react.
What do you look?
I know I'm talking wildly. I'll explain later. We've got to find him first. Hurry.
Oh, we're with you, all right, but who's he going to use this gun on?
Oh, isn't it perfectly obvious, Mr. Valentine? On himself.
Nice, just like Jimmy said. House over by the bluffs across the golf course.
It's certainly deserted looking. For sale, for lease.
Chester must be here. It's where he'd come.
It's Dorothy Fulman's house, huh? Where she was killed?
Yes, in the living room. Found her body there.
Beaten to death.
Door's open, you see. Chester? Chester!
Well, he's not here. The fall guy. Well, we're a long way on the outside of that old crime now, aren't we?
Perhaps we beat him here, missed him in the dark. Chester!
What do you mean, George?
Ames here knows what I mean. This is where it happened. It wasn't a pleasant crime. And inside a man, a terrible thing like that can get bigger in a year. Huh?
Mr. Valentine, I didn't kill her.
Sure. That's what they all say. But Buster, I'm just finally beginning to realize what a hopeless, crazy thing is happening tonight.
Wait a minute, George, listen.
Upstairs.
Come on.
Chester? Where are you, Chester? It's me, Victor Ames. Salter, what are you doing here? Mr. Valentine's all right, Salto. He knows the whole story now.
But I didn't mark any cards. It wasn't me.
Then what are you doing here, Salto? Hiding?
Leave him alone, Ames. Leave him alone. And never mind who marked the cards. But what do you think, Brooksy? 4 men actually drawing to see which one would be a fall guy. Which one would confess to a murder.
I don't believe it.
Oh, yes, it's very easy for the two of you to talk like that.
I told them it was ridiculous.
Same as Russian roulette. Spin the cartridge wheel. See who gets the bullet. Yeah, they couldn't stand to be pointed at. The suspicion, the shadow of guilt. The crime that would never be solved otherwise.
Yes, I told them that, but Ames and Norton kept
You
saying
were
that-
willing enough, Salter. You didn't have any solution anyway to keep yourself from going insane. Maybe you can't believe it, Miss Brooks. Why should you? You don't have a private hell to live in.
I don't think that's exactly what she meant, Ames. Sure, I know it's not like in books where people just forget about murder. But to try to dig yourself out of a swamp by drawing, taking one chance in 4 of being tapped for guilt, just to lay all the ghosts for the others.
If we did it, so what? We did it. We've nearly killed each other trying to make each other confess anyway.
I was thinking about the second part of the bargain. Suicide for the elected guilty one.
Yeah, to make sure the police would accept that confession.
Mr. Ames, you might have gone through with it. You're that kind. But I just don't believe that most men
Check,
would...
Angel. All right, how about it, Soldo? That's why you're here, isn't it? To see if Chester would go through with something that you wouldn't do yourself.
That I'm sorry, Victor. I wouldn't have. I couldn't have. I went along with it. Of course I did. If I'd been high card, I don't know what I would have done, but...
Okay, there's one down. Wet feet. By this time, Chester must be aboard the nearest freight train headed for parts unknown.
Chester? You signed the confession.
But he wouldn't do it. I know he'd been
At the
drinking,
last
but...
moment, it's a little hard to pull the trigger.
Is that so? You're so sure, aren't you?
Huh?
Moonlight out there. Window, come here. Look. It's him. It's Chester.
But he's not coming toward the house.
Just walking.
That's the path runs up by the bluffs.
Yes, and if anything happens to him, it's our fault, Salto.
Come on, step on it. Run!
Chester! Chester! What's the matter with him?
He doesn't even listen. Oh, look out, George.
Now, these bluffs are pretty steep, aren't they?
Chester! I'm going to climb up this way, too.
Oh, no, you don't, Buster.
Huh?
You
What?
just stay behind me with Miss Brooks.
Valentine.
There's another way this whole thing tonight can work, but I'm going to see that it doesn't.
George, look. He's up on one of the edges.
Stand still. Oh,
What a... Norton!
get out of here. Leave him alone.
Norton, wouldn't you know?
Stand still. I'm warning you, I have a gun.
Oh, yeah, sure. The one from the watchman's locker?
He didn't take it. Chester didn't take it. What's all this?
So you did. Sure. You guys wouldn't just make a deal for somebody to commit suicide. You'd get him to write a confession and then murder him.
He killed her. He killed Originating. He confessed.
George is up on the edge. Look at him.
Leave him alone. He'll jump, I tell you. Look at the way he's acting. I just followed him.
To give him the gun he didn't take.
Ames, listen. It will all be over. For all of us.
Oh, you inhuman old...
Let it happen. If you don't, it'll be the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, look. We can't stop him from here, and he does look like he wants to jump. Okay, so I've been wrong, so I...
Valentine!
Get out of the way with that gun! Back here!
I just...
Okay, now you're all
I've
right,
got it.
Norton. Stay there, all of you. Chester! Mr. Chester!
I'm all right. Yes?
Mr. Chester, now you listen to me. I can't reach you.
But get away now. There's something I'm going to do.
Yeah, I know. Kill yourself. But you were supposed to do it where she died, weren't you? Wasn't that the agreement, Chester, to make it look good? Can you understand me, Mr. Chester?
Well, I'm all right.
That's it. Just keep looking at me. It should have been the living room, though. Or were they always wrong? She was beaten, bruised. I remember they said they never found a weapon. Was it really up here that she died? Did she dump? Was she thrown? It would have looked the same if somebody then carried her body back to her house.
I'm going to jump, you know. Get back, get back.
No, you're not. You're too curious, Chester. This year, since Dorothy Fulman died, must have been the worst for the one who really killed her. Don't you think so, Mr. Chester?
What do you mean?
But admitting it is worse. Some people can't ever do that. They'd rather die than do that.
I'm going to jump. You can't stop me.
But you don't even want your death to be a confession, do you? Well, they gave you a chance, the little card drawing. You knew the masked deck, the marked one, would be found sooner or later. You deliberately left it behind.
No, go away
The
now.
world would say your confession was a fraud. You were a poor little patsy.
Well, any of them could have marked the cards. Norton, Salto,
The high man marked them. The guilty man, Chester. All I've said is built on that. When there's a drawing, a man can't make another man take a certain card. So if he marks them, he only marks them for himself. Check?
Yes, I understand, but...
To pick his own card. But the lowest card picked tonight was a 9. If a man wanted a low card, that's not very safe, is it, with 52 cards in the deck? You know, it baffled me for a while, until I saw that you really did want to die.
She was faithless. She was bad. Get out of my way!
Oh, no, you don't. Now, just hang on. You're going to live, Buster. You're going to write a real confession.
George, it did work out that way, didn't it?
Yeah, Brooksy, they pieced it together again. That's why Chester went up to the bluffs instead of taking the gun. That's how he had killed Dorothy Fulman a year back.
And if the first confession had gone through, if he'd shot himself, nobody ever would have believed it.
Well, the other 3 would have always thought they railroaded the poor little Punchy.
Say that private little hell, a new one. Mrs. Ames went still in love with her husband and called you here.
Mm-hmm.
George, isn't it remarkable what a woman will do for the man she loves?
Remarkable.
Forgive, forget, protect.
I'll remember that.
Darling.
The very next time I'm suspected of murder.
Oh!
Good night, Brooksy.
A newspaper reporter does plenty of stop-and-go driving in a month's time, short trip driving around town. And that's tough on car engines. Short trips prevent an engine from warming up. Corrosive rust gets a bigger chance to attack cylinder walls. One newspaper reporter wrote that he beat this kind of engine punishment by using RPM motor oil. I've driven my 1940 Buick, he wrote, for more than 92,000 miles. During this time, RPM motor oil was used exclusively. This is probably the reason why no repairs to the running gear or engine have been necessary. I thought you'd like to know about it, unquote. Well, friends, that's why RPM is first choice where driving's toughest. Ask short trip drivers anywhere in the West. They'll tell you more people prefer RPM than any other motor oil. And you'll find it's the best engine insurance you can buy for your car. Get RPM at independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations where they say and mean we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard Oil Company of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Virginia Gregg as Brooksy. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Larry Dobkin was heard as Ames, Bob Griffin as Chester, Harold Deerenforth as Salto, Ted Osborne as Norton, Lorene Tuttle as Mrs. Ames, and Bob Bruce as Jimmy. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter, your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, High Card is an ideal Let George Do It episode. Great suspense and a fantastic twist at the end when it turns out that all along the person who they're trying to save did actually do the crime, but if he'd been allowed to commit suicide, totally would have invalidated the confession in anybody's mind who found out about the card game. So it seemed there he was kind of betting on the decency of the other people in the game to realize what had happened and to come forward and state it publicly, because otherwise the only people that would feel bad were the people involved in the game. But they would also suspect that there was still a murderer among them. All right, well, now we turn to listener comments and feedback. This one comes from Amy, who says, I purchased your apps. Thank you so much for providing us who love old-time radio with great shows of the past. I love listening to your app, especially on long car rides. So much better than listening to today's radio. Thanks for all you do. Well, thanks so much, Amy, and glad you're enjoying our app, which is available for both the iPhone as well as for Android devices. Marla comments, I love your podcast. Bob Bailey of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, Let George Do It, is my all-time favorite voice of the detective era. I'm enjoying listening to Let George Do It series that I've downloaded on my iTouch. I have a long commute to my job each day and wanted you to know that you rock. Thanks for putting it out there for us. Well, thanks so much, Marla, and I think we between Let George Do It and Johnny Dollar, we've got several great years of enjoying Bob Bailey to come. And then we have got another vote, this one from Podcast Alley, just a simple comment of awesome podcast. Well, thank you. Appreciate all of your comments and your support. We will be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes, and then join us next week for another episode of Let George Do It. I'm going to be swapping the shows I do the promo on, because I do want to encourage you, if you've not already, to pick up a copy of my book, available for your Kindle, All I Needed to Know I Learned from Columbo. It examines life lessons from 7 great detectives, including Sherlock Holmes. In addition, we also discuss Father Brown, Nero Wolfe, Adrian Monk, and others. And of course, Columbo. It's available in the U.S. Kindle store for $1.99, and as of this recording, it's available for £1.45 in the UK Kindle store. Now it's time for today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, New Year's Eve off the Scilly Isles.
From New York, the makers of Clippercraft clothes for men and 924 leading retail stores from coast to coast present the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Our stories are based upon the character of Sherlock Holmes, created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Sherlock Holmes is portrayed by John Stanley, Dr. Watson by Alfred Shirley, and the dramatizations are by Edith Meiser. Well, here we are once again on the threshold of Dr. Watson's study. We find Mr. Holmes' genial biographer strutting up and down in front of his fireplace. Evening, Doctor. You look fit. The Christmas festivities don't seem to have got you down.
I am fit, Mr. Harris, very fit. Better than that, I'm rather well fitted. Oh, great Scott, man, where are your eyes?
Why, Dr. Watson, don't tell me Santa Claus brought you a Clippercraft suit.
Well, why not? Just because I'm a wee bit venerable doesn't mean I'm antique. I still enjoy making a good impression, don't you know?
Well, in that suit, it'll be the girls that go when you walk down the street, Doctor.
Oh, Mr. Harrison.
Seriously now, Doctor, suppose you tell us what tonight's story is to be about.
Well, tonight I thought I'd relate how Holmes and I spent New Year's Eve off the Scilly Isles.
The Scilly Isles? That sounds appropriate, Doctor.
The name of these particular islands is spelled Scilly. They are located roughly 100 miles southwest of Land's End, Mr. Harris.
Oh, what in the world were you doing there on New Year's Eve?
Trying to prevent a great maritime catastrophe. You remember what happened to the Titanic? You know what happened to the Lusitania? Well, the lives of those on the ocean liner Gigantic were in even greater danger when Holmes and I went over the side on New Year's Eve in the year 1912. Oh, but good heavens. There I go getting ahead of myself again. Suppose I fix us a Tom and Jerry while you tell our listeners how to start the year right in a Clippercraft clothes.
Fair enough, Dr. Watson. Millions of men, like you, will start the new year in a smart new Clippercraft suit and overcoat. Yes, today more men than ever before wear Clippercraft clothes. For we've sold more Clippercraft clothes than ever before in our entire history. There's a reason, of course. The wise old American public, with its eye for value, has pronounced Clippercraft the most remarkable clothing buys they've ever seen. The reason for these amazing values is the sensational Clippercraft plan, concentrating the buying power of 924 of the nation's leading stores from coast to coast. It accounts for tremendous savings in manufacturing and distribution costs. That's why truly fine Clippercraft suits are only $40 and $45, why Clippercraft topcoats and overcoats are only $40, and sport jackets only $26.50. Clippercraft values are downright amazing. Compare them with clothes selling for many dollars more. And now, Dr. Watson, to return to the New Year's Eve you and Sherlock Holmes celebrated on the good ship Gigantic.
Yes. Here's your Tom and Jerry, Mr. Harris.
Thank you,
Be
Doctor.
careful, don't burn yourself. Yes, it was probably the most hectic New Year's Eve I've ever experienced. Nothing is as terrifying to a seafaring man as the thought of fire aboard ship, the panic, the isolation. Oh, but that's neither here nor there. Yes, let me see. It was the last day of the year 1912. Its inception was sufficiently placid, I must say. A light snow was falling as Holmes and I seated ourselves on either side of a well-filled breakfast table. The flames of our sea-coal fire reflected themselves cheerfully in the generous coffee pot. The whole house was filled with the pleasant aroma of the stuffing Mrs. Hudson was preparing for our New Year's goose. Suddenly there came a frantic jangle at the front door bell.
No, definitely no.
No what, Holmes?
Whoever it is that's pulling our front doorbell out by the roots and whatever his problem is, I'm definitely not interested. Yes, Watson, being the world's greatest consulting detective has its disadvantages. People always manage to get into difficulties at the most inopportune moments.
Yes, you should try being a doctor, Holmes. No female since Eve has ever decided to become a mother at a convenient time.
Oh, come in, confound it.
Mr. Holmes? Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
Naturally. Whatever your problem is, I warn you it'll have to wait till after the holidays.
But it can't wait, Mr. Holmes. Close to 2,000 lives are at stake. I pray to heaven you'll be able to reach them before it's too late.
Reach whom? Where? And what is this disaster you anticipate with such trepidation?
The steamship Gigantic, Mr. Holmes. She should be somewhere off the Scilly Isles by midnight. We've been reliably informed that an attempt will be made to set fire to her at that time. If successful, it'll be the greatest disaster in all maritime history.
Yes, in that case, I suppose I shall have to forego the little celebration I'd planned for this evening.
Have to? Really, Holmes, you are a cold-blooded fish.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't believe you've met my colleague, Dr. Watson. Mr.
Pembroke. Reginald Pembroke.
How do you do, sir?
I'm chairman of the board of Floyd's, the famous insurance company.
Oh, then your desire to prevent this disaster isn't entirely humanitarian.
Not entirely, but neither is it altogether mercenary. There's more at stake than the lives of the passengers on board the Gigantic. If she goes down, the financial stability of the British Empire goes with her.
Interesting, Watson? Continue, Mr. Pembroke.
You may not be aware, Mr. Holmes, that during this past year there have been a terrifying number of marine catastrophes.
Holmes knows everything, Mr. Pembroke.
I'm quite cognizant of the fact that quite a few of the newest and fastest British liners have been destroyed at sea by fire, storm, and accident.
They weren't accidents, Mr. Holmes, I assure you.
Quite. The Egyptian Star was destroyed by fire in the Persian Gulf. 800 lives lost. The Lord Nelson disappeared in a typhoon in the Indian Ocean. No survivors. The Southern Cross exploded and sank off the coast of Brazil. 1,200 casualties. The Wellington, the Lady Jane Grey, and the El Dorado all caught fire in different parts of the Pacific. Total deaths, over 2,000. But the greatest disaster was last April, when the Titanic ran into an iceberg with a loss of over 1,500 souls.
The public's becoming panicky about traveling on British ships. The ships of other nationalities are taking all our trade. 3 banks and nearly 10 investment concerns who had large marine interests have gone to the wall. Even Floyd's is not too secure. But that is not the most serious aspect of the situation.
Really?
Good Lord, don't tell me there's worse to come.
Much worse, Dr. Watson. Those ships disappeared in many parts of the world. They were sunk by diverse methods. One factor, however, was the same in each disaster.
And that was?
The cargo carried by each ship was gold. English gold.
Oh.
If it ever became known how much British bullion lies at the bottom of the seven seas, British credit would be badly crippled. As a matter of fact, the Bank of England has been forced to import a large shipment of gold from Canada.
And it's on the Gigantic. Good Lord, no wonder you're upset.
The whole economic structure of the British Empire is at stake, Mr. Holmes. Nothing must happen to the Gigantic.
What makes you think anything will?
A cable was sent shortly after the Gigantic left Queenstown. She makes a stop in Ireland on her eastbound voyage, you know. She sailed shortly before dawn this morning. The gangplanks have been drawn in, the last line have been cast off, and the great propellers have begun to churn. Suddenly the dockmaster noticed someone sliding down the ship's side on a rope.
Hi, look up there, sir. Some fool's climbed over the side. He's coming down on a rope.
Go back, you fool. Go back. You'll be killed.
He'll never make the dock. He'll fall in the water and be swept under the ship.
No, he's pushing the rope away from the ship with his feet. He's swinging out. He's going to jump.
He made it.
Someone up on the bridge has seen him. He's calling to him.
The chap's picked himself up. He's shouting back.
Happy New Year to you up there. Happy New Year in hell.
Good Lord, I know the man, sir. It's Smoky Joe, the firebug. If the Gigantic don't catch fire between here and Southampton, I'm a Dutchman.
Smoky Joe. Seems to me we've heard of him before, Watson? Not merely as an expert arsonist, but a dangerous pyromaniac as well. They caught him, I hope, Mr. Pembroke.
No, Mr. Holmes. Unfortunately, he was too quick for them. He crawled down a ladder and disappeared among the pilings under the docks.
So, the Gigantic is headed for Southampton with a nice bit of Joe's handiwork aboard.
You think it's a firebomb, eh, Holmes?
Not necessarily, Watson. There are many ingenious ways of starting a fire, you know. Whoever hired Joe would prefer to have it happen well out to sea, I imagine.
Our thought exactly, Mr. Holmes. We've wirelessed Captain Brooks to make a search, of course, but on a ship the size of the Gigantic, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. You are our one hope, Mr. Holmes. If only you couldn't get on board in time.
And how do you suggest I go about that little assignment?
The chairman of the Great Western Railway has placed the Royal Train at your disposal. All other traffic will be cleared off the tracks. Now, you should reach Land's End shortly after lunch. My yacht, the Albatross, will be waiting for you in the harbor at St. Ives. It's a very speedy little craft, and with any luck, you should sight the Gigantic around 11 o'clock tonight.
Yes, 11 o'clock. What was it Smoky Joe called out? Happy New Year in hell. It won't be New Year till midnight. If we reach the Gigantic by 11, we may just possibly be in time. Six bells. It's 11 o'clock. Confound this fog. We've had to reduce our speed to half.
Oh, we'll never catch up to the Gigantic now, Holmes.
Nonsense. She's had to slow down, too. I only hope we don't miss her entirely in this fog.
I don't really care.
You don't sound very fit, Watson. What's up?
Do you have to use that unfortunate expression?
And tell me you're feeling squeamish.
It's this confounded roll. I can stand a good brisk sea, but this bobbing about in a teacup...
Pity I didn't bring the Mothersil's seasick pills.
Oh, Mothersil's bar. There's only one remedy for this sort of thing.
What's that?
Staying on shore. Jolly way to spend New Year's Eve, this is. Who do you suppose is responsible for these confounded sinkings, anyway?
Mr. Pembroke seems to feel it's a foreign plot. The Middle East European shipping industries benefit the most, of course.
Holmes, did you hear that?
By Jove, yes.
Sounds like an ocean liner, right enough.
Yes, we're signaling her.
Scott, there she is, the Gigantic looming out of the fog. Looks like a mountain coming at us.
Yes, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson coming aboard. Let down a ladder.
Ladder coming over. Look out below.
Here's the ladder, Watson. Think you can manage it?
I'd climb up the Eiffel Tower on a clothesline if it would get me off this bouncing cockle shell.
Quite an impressive array of instruments you have up here on the bridge, Captain Brooks.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. On the Gigantic, we have the latest of everything. And none of it's any real use in case of fire. I'd sooner face a typhoon or a shipwreck, or a mutiny even, dod rat it, than a fire on board ship.
But surely a ship this size should be fairly fireproof.
That's what you might think, Dr. Watson. But there are three factors that make a fire on a luxury liner dangerous. First, there's all the confounded ornamental woodwork that's used in a passenger construction. Second, there's the fact that once a fire gets a firm hold, it's fed by drafts that rush through the ventilating system. And third, there is the element of panic. Nothing makes people behave more like wild beasts quicker than the cry of fire.
In case of fire, you have, of course, an alarm system.
Oh, we have the old-fashioned system of bells, and also something rather recent. The Gigantic is one of the first ships to install it. You see that glass case over there, gentlemen?
Oh, the one with a lot of tubes entering from below. Looks rather like a giant honeycomb, eh, Holmes?
Each of those tubes leads to a separate compartment of the ship. The instant a fire breaks out anywhere, smoke is immediately drawn up into the glass case. I've stationed a sailor to watch that case. Believe me, gentlemen, the first wisp of smoke, we shall know it.
Yes, undoubtedly very helpful, Captain Brooks, in the case of an ordinary conflagration. I assure you a fire set by Smoky Joe is not ordinary. He's a master arsonist. 10 seconds after one of his fires breaks out, you're dealing with a raging inferno.
Well, confound it, they tell me the man deserted the ship at Queenstown. That is this morning. Well, that's more than 18 hours ago. If he'd set fire, it seems to me that we'd be in flames by this time.
Not necessarily. There are many methods by which a fire can be made to break out long after the pyromaniac has left the scene of his crime. You say you found no time bombs, no inflammable acids?
No, Mr. Holmes. Ever since I received word that we were in danger, I've had my men searching high and low. They found nothing, absolutely nothing. It's been a systematic search, I promise you.
Yes, but you've drawn a blank. That's what comes of using system instead of brains and initiative.
Oh? And how do you propose to locate whatever it is we can't find?
By using a little logic. I shall credit Smoky Joe with having the intelligence to place his fire-starting device in the place where it'll do the most damage. The man's no amateur, Captain. He knows his business. Then I shall investigate that place and remove his handiwork.
Holmes, you're bragging again.
Not at all, my dear Watson. I think I may promise I shall have discovered the menace inside of half an hour. I only hope Joe's little device doesn't do its nasty job before then.
Half an hour. It's now 11:30 exactly. Do you think you can solve this problem by midnight?
Yes, Captain. With any luck, I think I can promise you a placid and uneventful new year.
Captain Brooks? Yes, Mr. Brown. What seems to be the trouble?
The wireless engineer, sir, wishes to report that something's wrong with his apparatus. Both the sending and receiving equipment have suddenly gone out of commission.
I don't like that. What does he think is the
Pardon
matter?
me, Captain. Can you come here a minute?
Excuse me a moment, gentlemen. The wheelsman is calling me. What's the trouble, Jerry?
It's the compass. It's spinning like a top. I can't figure out what's got into it. Never seen the like except once in some magnetic storm.
Great Scott, this is incredible.
Now what? It's the engine room calling, Captain.
I'll take it. Hello? Yes, Captain Brooks speaking. The blazes, you say? Well, do the best you can.
Seems to be the difficulty, Captain.
The dynamos are slowing down. They can't figure out why.
Good Lord, sir, that's why the lights are getting dim.
Blazes with the lights. Without dynamos, we've no forced draft for the furnaces. We'll never keep up enough steam pressure to drive the ship. In no time at all, we'll be drifting helplessly in the Atlantic, in the middle of the reefs that surround the Scilly Isles.
Jolly way to spend New Year's Eve, eh, Holmes?
It could be worse, you know.
How?
The ship could be on fire. That's the real menace, to which these other threats are but the prelude, I fancy.
For the love of heaven, what are we to do?
Keep calm and use whatever intelligence the Lord has endowed us with. Captain Brooks, I suggest you and as many officers as you can spare join the holiday celebration that's undoubtedly going on, in order to keep discipline in case there's any disturbance.
Very good, Mr. Holmes. There's a New Year's dance going on in the large ballroom. It's on sea deck.
And meanwhile, if you can spare us someone to guide Watson and myself.
Oh, of course. And Mr. Brown here is our purser. He knows the ship as well as anyone aboard.
I'm sure he does. Very well, Mr. Brown. If you'll lead the way, I think Dr. Watson and I would like to go below.
And investigate the engines?
No, Mr. Brown, even lower than that. What we're looking for is apt to be rather close to the furnaces, I imagine.
Oh, these iron stairs that go round and round to make me dizzy. Maybe it's the heat down here.
Yes, we're getting close to the furnace room. If you listen, you can hear the men stoking.
Grim way to earn a living, eh, Holmes?
Stop a minute. Where does that lead, Mr. Brown? That small corridor with a heavy metal door at the far end.
That's the bullion room, sir, where the gold is kept.
Very interesting. Suppose we take a look, eh, Watson?
Yes, I've always wanted to see those gold bars you hear so much about.
I'm afraid that won't be possible, Dr. Watson.
Why not?
Well, as you can see, the door is locked and sealed. It was done by the port authorities before we left New York. That door won't be opened until the port authorities unseal it when we reach Southampton.
You mean that room in there wasn't opened when the captain ordered the ship searched for incendiary material?
No, Mr. Holmes. But it's quite impossible for anyone to place a firebomb or anything of the sort in there. As you can see, the seals are still intact.
Quite. These seals are intact. But are they the ones put on in New York? I doubt it. Let's have a look. Yes, interesting. Very interesting. These are not the original seals.
Oh, how can you tell, Holmes? They look intact to me.
Exactly, they are intact. But here in the crack of the door sill are bits of broken seals. But these seals are not even chipped.
By Jove, yes, of course. The original seals were hacked off and then replaced after someone had finished picking the lock and robbing the room inside.
I doubt if robbery was the motive, Watson.
Well, for what other reason would anyone want to break into a room full of gold bullion?
It all depends. What lies directly below that room, Mr. Brown?
Well, let me see. Well, nothing of any great importance, Mr. Holmes. Just the coal piles.
The coal piles? Good Lord. I think we shall have to break the seals again, Mr. Brown. Here, Watson, help me.
But the door is locked, Mr. Holmes. Even after the seals have been removed, we shall have to get the key from the captain.
No time for that. Hand me my burglar tools, Watson.
Very well.
But, good heavens, you mean you could actually pick a lock with those things?
If Holmes ever turned thief, Mr. Brown, even the Bank of England wouldn't be safe.
Yes, that should do the trick. Now, if you'll help me draw the bars, Watson.
Yes, with pleasure. Well, there you are, Holmes.
Now, let's see.
Say, it's black in there, isn't it?
Is there a light inside, Mr. Brown?
No, Mr. Holmes, I'm afraid not.
Then we shall have to prop the door open. The light from the corridor will have to do for our investigations. Come on, Watson.
Holmes, that smell. Phew. Strong and acrid. Like sulfur, only with more bite.
Seems to be coming from this large tin. Suppose I light a match.
British village, stop!
Don't be alarmed. I know better than to light a match around a tin which is leaking sulfuric acid. I only wanted to know how much you knew about Smoky Joe's incendiary device, Mr. Ludwig Brown, spelled B-R-A-U-N, if I'm not mistaken.
So you recognize me?
Yes, that dueling scar over your left eye. It's rather a giveaway, don't you know?
So you have found how we are going to set fire to the ship by having the acid drip through a hole in the floor onto the coal beneath. The first shovelful of that acid-soaked coal that goes in the furnace, and the whole of a ship will be a blazing inferno. Nothing could put out that fire.
Don't you mean that's how you were going to start the fire?
My dear Mr. Holmes, you do not think we will let a small obstacle like the famous Sherlock Holmes stand in our way?
Now, listen to me.
Don't raise your fist to me or I'll let you have it.
Never argue with a Luger pistol, Watson.
Why, that's the first sensible remark you've made, Mr. Holmes. I'm sorry to leave, but the stokers should reach the sulfuric acid-impregnated coal in about 10 minutes, I believe. So I must be going. This room will be a roaring oven once it starts. You'll be rather badly overdone, gentlemen. Goodbye, then. So sorry I cannot say auf Wiedersehen.
The door. He's bolted it. Even you can't open it now, Holmes.
Shut up, Watson, and help me look for the opening.
What opening, for heaven's sake?
The opening that leads to the tube that ends in the captain's new fire-detecting machine. It should be somewhere near the ceiling.
But, Holmes, I can't see a thing in this black hole of Calcutta.
You can feel, can't you?
Not a thing, Holmes. The wall on this side of the room, it's as smooth as an egg.
Confound it, if we could see for half a minute, it would... Hello, I've got something.
Yes?
Yes, a small grating here in the upper corner. This must be it. Now, if we can make a smudge of some sort. Watson, bring me a piece of paper.
Paper? Where would I find a piece of paper?
Then bring me anything I can burn. A bit of cloth, a piece of... Yes, by Jove, rope. Bring me a piece of the rope that's tied around one of the boxes that contain the bullion.
Very well, if I can find a box that... Oh!
Now what?
I found it. Confound it. The Your knots are tied so tight I
Blazes with knots. Cut the rope, Watson. Use your pocket knife.
Oh, very well. There you are, Holmes. It's a short length, I'm afraid.
I only want enough for a smudge. Nothing like a bit of hempen rope to...
Holmes, for heaven's sake, you're not going to set a match to that thing in here. There'll be an explosion.
Have to take the chance, Watson. With any luck, the sulfuric acid fumes won't be too concentrated up here near the ceiling. Well, here goes. 1, 2. Now, if we can persuade the rope to smolder. Yes, there she goes.
Certainly makes plenty of smoke, eh, Holmes?
The important thing is being drawn up through the grating.
How long before they come to investigate, do you suppose?
It all depends on the mental acumen of the sailor who's watching that fire-detecting machine.
Well, let's hope he's brighter than he looks. It may be my imagination, but it seems to me I can feel the metal flooring under my feet beginning to get hot.
Most things in 1948 will cost you a great deal more than you've paid in other years. That's why it's sensational news to know that you can get Clippercraft suits in 1948 for only $40 and $45. Clippercraft top coats and overcoats for only $40 and sport jackets for only $26.50. And isn't it as good a time as any to decide to get the most for your money? You've every right to expect long wear, correct styling, good taste, comfort, and perfect fit. And you get all these to an astounding degree in Clippercraft clothes. And you get them at incredibly modest prices. It's, of course, American production genius applied to the making of fine clothes that does the trick. It's the unique Clippercraft plan, concentrating the buying power of 924 of the nation's leading independent stores from coast to coast. You get the benefit of this plan at your own locally owned store, the store you can trust. Selling expensive clothes at inexpensive low prices at the nation's finest independent stores is the great big idea behind the Clippercraft plan. That's why men who know insist on Clippercraft clothes. So be sure to visit the Clippercraft store in your city.
These leading stores in the metropolitan area are proud to add their names to Clippercraft in your suit, top coat, and overcoat. In Manhattan, Saks 34th, Broadway at 34th. John Wanamaker Men's Stores, Broadway at 8th and 67 Liberty Street. In Brooklyn, Abraham and Strauss. In Newark, New Jersey, Boulevard Men's Shop, Kresge, Newark. And in Jamaica, the B&B Clothes Shop, 16408 Jamaica Avenue.
Now let's rejoin Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, locked in the smoke-filled bullion room of the Gigantic.
Good Lord. How long does it take for them to get us out of here? That smoke's suffocating.
Calm yourself, Watson. It can't be more than 3 minutes since we lit this smudge. Yes, I can hear someone running down the iron staircase.
I can't hear a blasted thing. How do you...
Hello! Hello in there!
Get us out!
We're in here!
Open the door! What a relief.
How in thunder did you two get locked in here? What's all the smoke?
No time for explanations, Captain. Stop them stoking the furnaces. Flood the coal piles with water. They've been soaked with sulfuric acid.
Good Lord! Blanchard! Gates! Stop the firing! Stop the pumps in the engine room!
Well, that's that, Holmes. What do you suppose has become of that dastardly purser?
We'll let Captain Brooks take care of him, Watson. Unless I'm very much mistaken, Mr. Brown is going to wish he'd never gone to sea. Well, come along, let's go upstairs and join the festivities. I think we rate a bottle of champagne.
Well, to blazes with the champagne, I need a double brandy. 8 bells. Let's see, that would be...
Midnight, Watson. Happy New Year, old fellow.
Happy New Year, Holmes, and many of them. But, don't you think you could manage to have them not quite so hair-raising?
And have you getting fat and lethargic? You know, that would be unhealthy, not to say boring.
Oh, so now it's for my sake we indulge in all these horrendous escapades, eh? Fine bit of logic, that is.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Elementary. But here's the ballroom. Suppose we join the party.
Fine, my dear. All lands are
Dr. Watson, that was an exciting way to spend New Year's Eve.
It was a bit too exciting, Mr. Harris, if you ask me.
Doctor, did they catch the purser?
Oh, they did indeed. Mr. Brown and 5 of his accomplices were thrown in the brig. That was the end of the disasters in the British Maritime Service.
When did Holmes first suspect the purser was the villain of the piece?
When he came onto the bridge and threw his overcoat on a chair near to the compass, whereupon the compass went berserk. Holmes immediately suspected the coat contained a powerful magnet of some sort.
And was he right, Doctor?
My dear Mr. Harris, was Sherlock Holmes ever wrong? But come, fill your mug and let us wish our radio friends a prosperous, happy, and peaceful New Year.
Indeed we do, Doctor. And now, Dr. Watson, would you like to give us a hint about next week's story?
Next week, I think I'll tell you how Holmes and I trapped a famous jewel thief right in our own rooms in Baker Street by the use of what was then a fabulous new invention, the gramophone.
The makers of Clippercraft clothes and 924 leading stores from coast to coast have brought you another in the new series of broadcasts featuring the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is produced and directed by Basil Lochran, with special music by Albert Berman. If you don't know your Clippercraft dealer, write Clippercraft, 200 Fifth Avenue, New York City. Be sure to listen next week to Sherlock Holmes in The Mazarin Stone. If you'd like to attend the Sherlock Holmes broadcasts in New York, see your local Clippercraft dealer, and he'll tell you how to obtain your tickets. This is Cy Harris speaking for Clippercraft Clothes for Men, wishing you a happy and prosperous New Year from all of us at Clippercraft. This is the world's largest network serving more than 450 radio stations of usual broadcasting.
Welcome back. It was kind of odd to hear Sherlock Holmes wanting to have New Year's Eve dinner rather than go out on a problem. It's worth noting here that, of course, this episode was set in 1912, towards the tail end of the Holmes era. His very last adventure was set in 1914. I do think this episode could have used a better, maybe more descriptive title. It really did not convey that we were going to be in a race against time to save the ship and the English economy. Title sounded a whole lot more lighthearted than that. Well, we turn now to listener comments and feedback, and just a nice keep up the good work. Well, thank you for your kind remarks. That will do it for today. And next week we return to regular order with our next episode of Sherlock Holmes. Join us tomorrow for yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Well, before we do get started, I do want to remind you that this episode of The Great Detectives of Old Time Radio is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. And today we highlight another recent donation, this one from Al over in Florida. Thanks so much for your support, Al. And as is the case with all donations of $7 or more, we'll be sending you access to our premium site. Now, here's today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, The Underwood Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for John Lund as Johnny Dollar.
Red Egan, Johnny.
Oh, how are you, Red? Is it a boy or a girl?
Both. Barrie had twins.
Well, and double congratulations. Do I get 2 cigars?
Sure, if you'll come down to my office and pick them up.
Fair enough.
Better pack a suitcase, too. I have a job for you.
Where?
The coroner's holding an inquest in Rexford, Wyoming tomorrow afternoon. I'd like you to be in on it.
Why?
We have a dead client named Underwood. We don't know if he was murdered, committed suicide, or had an accident.
What does it look like?
All 3.
I'll be there in an hour. John Lund in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Allied Adjustment Bureau, Suite 418, Markham Building, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Underwood matter. The situation wasn't a new one, and our position wasn't any different. Red Egan reminded me of all this in his office.
We're in the same old spot, Johnny, with the same old problem. The policyholder's dead, and for looking into it, the insurance company is no longer a friend of the widow or the orphan, but a big, bad monster trying to weasel out of a just claim.
And every claim is a just claim.
Well, the claim came into our office yesterday afternoon. They turned it over to me for adjustment this morning. I phoned the beneficiary in Rexford, and she hung up on me.
Oh?
Underwood's widow. She didn't like it a bit, having an insurance man in Hartford calling her up. Even after I explained that any insurance company has to conduct an investigation on a claim, and that's my business.
Mm-hmm. Well, what exactly happened to Underwood?
The only thing I really know is that he fell 4 stories from a hotel window and died instantly. Here. The AP account of his death came from a local paper there.
Mm-hmm. How big was the policy?
$25,000. Double indemnity if it was an accident, of course. No payment if he committed suicide.
This doesn't say anything about suicide.
My guess is that a local reporter wrote that up. Underwood was a major stockholder in the newspaper it appeared in. I doubt if they'd suggest suicide, don't you?
I don't know, Red. I never met the editor.
Well, meet him if you like. Talk to him. Talk to anybody. When you get to Rexford, go to the inquest and sit with the spectators. Listen to what everybody has to say. After all, it's up to the coroner's jury there to decide whether Underwood was pushed, fell, or jumped to his death. Not us. I just want you there to be sure that whatever Columbia does about this claim, that it's all tidied up. Okay?
Okay. Oh, how about my cigars?
Sure, help yourself. Cost me $3.69 a box.
And on second thought, you can buy me a drink. Expense account item 1. $214.65. Plane fare, train fare, bus fare, and incidentals between Hartford and Rexford. I arrived at 11:30 in the morning and checked in at the same hotel where Raymond Underwood had met his death. I had some lunch in a coffee shop, and after that I struggled my way against a belligerent north wind to the city hall and the inquest. There I sat with the reporters and listened to a bellhop, a desk clerk, and a chambermaid give their versions of what had happened the day Underwood met his death. I was most interested in what Mrs. Underwood had to say.
When did you last see your husband, Mrs. Underwood?
Last Thursday morning.
About what time?
12 o'clock. A little before, I guess.
Where?
The Pioneer Hotel. In his room there.
The same room he occupied prior to his death?
Yes.
Were you alone?
Yes, just with him.
And what time did you leave?
I was only there 15 or 20 minutes. Must have left before 12:30. I had an appointment.
That was the last time you saw Mr. Underwood alive?
Yes. He called me about 3 in the afternoon and told me that had lived happily.
What did you talk to your husband about, Mrs. Underwood?
We were talking about being divorced.
Was the deceased in good health?
Yes.
Had he been drinking?
Some. Not much. I guess he'd had a couple before I got there.
She was a tall, dark-haired woman in her early 30s. Her clothes were New York, perfume Paris, rings Tiffany's. She answered the questions of the interrogator without hesitation, without emotion. It had been previously established by the desk clerk that she'd left the hotel room a full 15 minutes before Underwood had plunged to his death. By 4:30 in the afternoon, it was all finished. The jury brought in their verdict for the coroner's man to read.
Raymond W. Underwood came to his death by a broken back received in a fall from the 4th story of the Pioneer Hotel at or about 12:30 p.m. on Thursday, February 19th.
I left the city hall and went down to the Western Union office and wired the news to Red Egan. After that, I looked up Sergeant Hannon at the police station. He gave me a copy of the coroner's verdict and the death certificate.
Here you are.
Thanks.
How much you stuck for?
$50,000?
That's the way it goes, huh?
Yeah, I suppose so. Sergeant.
Yeah?
Where's Mrs. Underwood from?
Here.
All her life?
All her life. Born and raised right here in Rexford. Of course, she went to school in the East, and she's been in Europe a couple of times, but most of her life right here.
Mighty pretty widow.
Mighty rich one, too. Underwood had it.
I know. This divorce.
Everybody in town knew they weren't getting along. Never did get along. How could they? Alice was 28 and Ray was over 50. He could have been her father. As a matter of fact, he almost was.
How's that?
Well, he raised her from the time she was 14. He paid for all her schooling and growing up. She didn't have any folks after her old man died. Ray was pretty good to her.
I see.
We went over what you were thinking, Dollar. Sure, anybody would. But they were talking about divorce. Papers had been drawn up for a settlement. He got a lot of money in alimony and so on. Alice had no call to push him out of that window or have anybody else do it.
What about the possibility of suicide?
The jury said accident. Besides, everybody here knew Ray. He wasn't a suicide type.
Nobody's the suicide type till they come to the end of the line, Sergeant. Then it's too late to interview him and ask him about it. But it's already been said as an accident, so I guess I'm just throwing words around.
You have a right to do that if you aren't satisfied with the verdict, Dollar. Anything we can do, be glad to help.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. Expense account item 2, $10.80, public stenographer. I assembled copies of all the testimony, re-interviewed the people at the hotel, had all of it typed up and notarized and forwarded to Hartford. Then made arrangements to meet my eastbound plane in Cheyenne. I was about to check out when my phone rang. Johnny Dollar.
Trying to get you for 3 hours, Johnny.
What's up, Red?
The insurance agent in Cheyenne just got back from his vacation and read about Underwood's death. He phoned Columbia long distance with some information. 2 days before it happened, Underwood phoned this agent and said he wanted to change the beneficiary on his policy. He didn't say who to.
Uh-oh.
And now, get this. The morning Underwood died, he phoned and said to never mind, that Mrs. Underwood was still his beneficiary. What do you make of it?
I don't know. Maybe I'd better find out.
What matters do you want to clear up?
Oh, just some details about your husband's death, Mrs. Underwood. I sure hate to trouble you at a time like this.
That's perfectly all right, Mr. Donnell. Sit down. Can I get you a drink?
Scotch will be fine.
All right.
Did you know that Mr. Underwood wanted the beneficiary on his insurance policy last week?
Yes. Water all right?
Oh, fine. We also learned that he changed his mind about that the day he died. Can you explain any of that?
I think so, Mr. Donnell. Ray and I were going to be divorced. We moved out of the house better than a month ago. We went to his attorney's and drew up a tentative property settlement. Here you are.
Thanks.
I didn't see him for 3 weeks or so, and then we happened to meet, and, well, we had a rather bitter argument about everything.
Where was this?
In the dining room of the hotel. I was lunching there with some friends.
I see.
It was one of those ridiculous things. We quarreled and parted very angrily. The whole thing was childish. My first impulse was to see a lawyer and demand every unreasonable thing I could on a settlement. I guess his impulse was to cancel me out as his beneficiary.
Did you go to a lawyer?
No. I cooled off.
You know what day this was?
The luncheon was a Tuesday affair, I think. Yes.
That fits in all right.
Our parting had been amicable. I mean, Ray and I just didn't get along as husband and wife. But we made it up. Just before he died. He called me that morning and apologized for his conduct. I apologized to him. I went to see him later at the hotel. He fell out of the window after I left.
Yeah. Well, then, we can assume that this business with the policies had to do with the argument.
I can't think of any other reason.
You had no other heirs?
No? Why?
Well, you see, Mrs. Underwood, it's kind of hard for us to believe that a man involved in divorcing his wife would still name her as his beneficiary.
Why do you say a thing like that?
Because of past experience, I suppose. It's unusual.
I see. Of course, I was the last one to see Ray alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have told you that we were reconciled, that we were going to drop the whole matter, that he was going to move back into the house.
Yes, you could have told me that, Mrs. Underwood.
But I didn't. I told you the truth. I haven't lied to you, Mr. Donner. When Mr. Egan called from Hartford a few days ago, I was very upset. I've never been a widow before. You're still looking at me with a question, Mr. Donner.
I hate to be stubborn, but I'd still like to know about the other matter.
Why I am still his beneficiary?
Yes. The next morning, I interviewed all the people who had been on duty at the hotel the morning of Underwood's death. Then I dropped in to see Sergeant Hammond once more.
Here it is, right here. Went over the room myself with two of my men. The personal effects of the deceased included 4 suits of men's clothing, 14 shirts, 5 pair of men's hosiery.
Was there a bottle in there?
Liquor?
Yeah.
Nope.
How about a flask?
Nope, nothing like it. Just a glass.
Hammond, I talked to all the people at the hotel before I came over here. Underwood left a call for 11:30 the morning he died. They called him. 5 minutes later, he phoned the insurance agent in Cheyenne. And that's the only business he conducted all day, outside of calling his home. We know he didn't leave the room, and we know Mrs. Underwood visited him there about 12.
Yeah.
But more important, Underwood didn't call and have a bellboy bring him a bottle. Room service didn't send him any drinks. The chambermaid swears there was no bottle of liquor of any kind in his room all the time he lived at the hotel.
Ray didn't drink much.
Well, that adds to it. What light drinker takes a drink before breakfast? He only had time to get up and shave before his wife showed up.
Who said he had a drink?
Mrs. Underwood. On a witness stand under oath, she said that her husband had had a couple of drinks. Mind you, she didn't say he was drunk, but she did say he'd been drinking before she got there. You know what I think, Hammond?
What?
I think she just threw that in because it's a little hard to believe that a cold, sober man would walk out of a hotel window and kill himself accidentally. But you and I and everybody else at that coroner's inquest got the impression that Underwood was slightly tipsy. I want to know where he got the drink. I want to know who gave it to him. That's what I want to know. Where'd he get the drink? If he had one.
Pretty good question, Dollar.
We'll return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Every Saturday in the daytime, CBS Radio presents City Hospital, just one of a thrilling lineup of weekend dramatic programs at the Star's address. City Hospital tells gripping stories of life and sometimes death in a great hospital. Tomorrow and every Saturday on most of these same stations, CBS Radio invites you to enjoy City Hospital. Now, with our star John Lund, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
After our talk, Sergeant Hannon agreed that there was enough of a doubt about the circumstances just before Underwood's death to warrant a re-examination of the facts. That was all I needed. I knew that Mrs. Underwood would be questioned and that the pressure would start to build up. I had some pressure of my own. Expense account item 4. $13.25. Another long-distance phone call. This one to Hartford and Red Egan. I explained our position to him.
What?
The best thing right now is to move fast. Deny liability on the grounds that the accident is not proved.
Suppose she sues us.
Let her. The burden of proving that it was an accident would be on her. Red, he didn't have a drink that morning.
All right, she made a mistake. He had a heart attack, got dizzy, and tumbled out of the window.
He might have, sure. But there's no doctor in town able to tell us he had any trouble along those lines. And there's Mrs. Underwood herself.
What about her?
She was ready for that coroner's jury yesterday, and she was ready for me when I called on her last night. The only one she wasn't ready for was you when you phoned her a couple of days ago, and she hung up. She halfway apologized for that. But she really couldn't think of anything to say to you.
Okay, but I want to tell you I don't think the Columbia insurance people will play it that way. They have a matter of public confidence to think of. Suppose it's a just claim.
I tell you it isn't.
Why? Do you have anything else?
3 things. Instinct, experience, and statistics. She's a young woman. She was married to a wealthy older man. With him out of the way, she has all his money, everything, not just alimony and a property settlement. And what he left her in the way of property and other things, not to mention the insurance, is something to consider. It's the kind of stuff she can go places and do things on.
All right, I'll tell him that. What else?
Tell him I'm working for evidence, and the best way to get it is to bring her out in the open. File a complaint against her to the district attorney's office.
What charge?
Suspected murder.
Johnny, that'd get us a criminal libel suit.
Remember the drink. He didn't have the drink.
All right, but she had an alibi.
She had help. Somebody got into the hotel without being seen and pushed Underwood out of that window.
You're convinced that it's murder?
You bet your boots I am. At 6 o'clock that night, I compared notes with Sergeant Hannon. He reported that after questioning Mrs. Underwood, she admitted that she might have been mistaken about her husband drinking the morning of his death. She wasn't sure. But Hannon said what we both were thinking.
He was sure enough in front of that coroner's jury to give a misleading impression, Dollar. We better find out who helped her pull this off.
Hannon had 16 men working on the case by then. It was a long, tedious job of combing over everything in Alice Underwood's background in order to find a possible accomplice. About 4 o'clock the next afternoon, we interviewed one of the 3 servants in the Underwood home.
That's right, sir. Once or twice a week.
You know where she drove to?
I have no idea, sir. She'd generally get up early in the morning and be gone all day.
How do you know she went out of town? Couldn't she just have gone and visited a friend somewhere nearby?
Oh, I suppose so, Mr. Dollar, but then she'd generally take a small suitcase, a change of clothes. You don't take those when you're visiting a friend in town, do you?
You might.
Wait a minute. What car did she take?
The Cadillac. And I knew it'd come back covered with mud and ice. Always have to be washed up.
I see.
Mr. Underwood used to complain about it a whole lot.
About the car?
Oh, no. About the trips. They had some pretty good arguments about them.
Could you repeat anything that was said?
Well, I don't guess I could, word for word.
Do you know what they were about?
Yes. Oh, yes. And about the same all the time. Mr. Underwood said she shouldn't visit that man.
What man?
Just that man. I never knew who it was that they were arguing about.
Uh-huh. How long have you worked for Mr. Underwood?
Me? I've been in this house 13 years, sir.
And you've known Mrs. Underwood quite a long time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Knew her when she was a little girl, when she first came here. And saw her grow up and go away to school and come back and go away to Europe and back a little more grown up and a little different each time. I seen her turn into a woman over the years, sir.
Were you surprised when Mr. Underwood married her?
No. Yes, I guess I was. I mean, she always seemed so young compared to him, but then when she was growing up, it was sort of different, so I wasn't surprised at that.
Let me ask you this. Did she seem to fit in here?
You mean when she married him?
Yeah.
Well, before they were sort of, like friends. I mean, they'd ride horses and go hunting and laugh and talk about different things, but she traveled so much and saw so many different things around the world that it didn't seem they were friendly anymore once that they were married. I mean, Mr. Underwood was Wyoming, and Mrs. Underwood, she was Well, different, even though this is her home.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Wait, I feel awful about Mr. Underwood being dead. I've been telling you the things the way I see them. I know you'll probably hear different stories from everybody. But I'm glad you came and asked me. If there was anything wrong about the way he died, I'd like it to be fixed.
Sure you would.
Mrs. Underwood probably would fire me for talking like this, but I don't care. This house isn't the same anymore.
Before the day was out, a complaint had been issued against Alice Underwood on suspicion of murder. However, it was not served immediately, because by that time, Sergeant Hannon's men had discovered the names of 3 men Mrs. Underwood had been seen with at various places around Rexford in the past 3 years. One of them had been killed in the Korean War. One of them had moved to Chicago 14 months before. The third one was a man named Tyler. He operated a sizable ranch about 80 miles from the city limits. We found him loading cattle onto a couple of trucks.
You're trying to find out if I've been seeing her on the sly while she's been married to Ray. Why don't you come right out and ask?
All right, Tyler, I'll ask. Have you?
No, I haven't. Nothing between us. Any time we were together while she was married to Ray, he knew about it. He's a good friend of mine. I'm sorry he's dead. And Alice is a good friend of mine, too. I'm sorry you people are thinking what you are. Well, come on, let's go up to the house.
Where were you last Thursday, Mr. Tyler?
The day Ray died?
Yeah.
Right here.
Can you prove it?
Say, what is this?
We haven't accused you of anything, Tyler. We're just trying to gather some facts.
Alice is a grand girl. Put that down as one of your facts. You boys want a drink?
No, thanks.
Not for me, thanks. When was the last time you were in Rexford?
Oh, I haven't been in for the last 6 months. Wait, I was, too. I came in one day around Christmas to do some shopping. Most of the time, my cook or somebody goes in and handles the supplies there.
Okay, Tyler. Mind if we talk to some of your help around here?
No, what do you want to talk to them about?
First, about where you were last Thursday. If you were here, they'd be the logical ones to verify. Second, about Mrs. Underwood.
What about her?
What we asked you. Just checking it, Tyler. You've been taking trips and visiting somebody around here. We thought maybe it was you.
It wouldn't look good if she was visiting me, is that it?
It depends on the circumstances.
Yeah. Tell me something, will you? Have you taken any action against her yet?
Not yet.
My company's filed a complaint. Suspicion of murder.
I see. I'd like to tell you something.
Okay.
Both of you know her, huh?
Yeah.
Daddy was a drunk. When he died, Ray took over and gave her everything. If it hadn't been for him, she'd have been tossing ash in some restaurant around here, kidding the customers and married to a truck driver.
What's this got to do
with it? Let me go on. Sure, she loved Ray for giving her all that. But any woman needs more than that kind of love. I lied to you a few minutes ago. There was something between us. It was bound to happen to me or somebody else closer to her age. I was glad when she and Ray finally decided to be divorced. It was my chance to marry her. You can talk to my people around here. They'd lie for me and say I was here last Thursday all day, and they'd tell you that Alice never came here to see me. They'd lie right on down the line for me, but I can't let you take her into custody for something I did. Something she didn't have anything to do with. I killed Ray Underwood.
How did it happen?
I didn't mean to. One of my trucks was delivering some beef to the restaurant at the hotel. I rode in with the driver and went in the back way. I went right up to Ray's room because I wanted to talk to him.
What about? Wasn't the divorce settled?
Yeah, it was all set. All set. He called me the night before. Been kind of sore about Allison. I just wanted to go in and tell him what I told you. We didn't plan to fall in love. We didn't want to hurt him. We both loved him. When I got to his room, he wouldn't let me talk at all. Tried to swing him.
I shoved him, and he went out the window. That's all.
Expense account item 5, $38.15. Hotel and food while in Rexford. Item 6, same as 1, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $491.50. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars John Lund in the title role and was written by E. Jack Newman with music by Eddie Dunstetter. John Lund can currently be seen in the Universal International picture Just Across the Street. Featured in tonight's cast were Ted Bliss, Jeanette Nolan, Joe Duvall, John McIntyre, and Dick Ryan. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Cubberly inviting you to join us next week at this time when John Lund returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Theater of Today is another outstanding program in your Saturday daytime listening lineup on CBS Radio. Each Saturday, CBS Radio offers hard-hitting stories on Theater of Today. You may hear enacted a problem much like one of your very own through the telling human dramas. Hear tomorrow's episode of Theater of Today on most of these same stations.
And remember, Gangbusters go into action Saturday nights on the CBS Radio Network.
Welcome back. Well, Johnny Dollar has a lot of flexibility with its outcomes, and we kind of saw that here. This really more of an accidental death situation. This is another case that was remade with Bob Bailey. I actually did not remember it, this specific series. I do think there were some plot differences when Bob Bailey made it. We'll find out in a year or so when we get to those episodes. Well, now we turn to listener comments and feedback. First, from over on Twitter, received a tweet. Maybe it's just me being British, but I always thought your name was Adam Grant. Just an accent thing, I guess. Love great detectives. Well, thanks so much. I have to admit, my life would be a little easier if my name were Adam Grant. People would not get as confused about the spelling of my name. But thanks so much for listening there in Britain. Awesome podcast, great host, and well worth the listen from Ernie. Enjoy the stories. Miss the ones that are finished, but the new ones don't take long to captivate me. Keep up the good work from Paul and PA. And then just another keep up the good work. Well, thanks so much for all your comments and feedback. I appreciate all your support. We will be back next year, which is just coming up on Saturday night, New Year's Eve, and then Sunday New Year's. So we'll be back on Monday, January 2nd of 2012. I hope you have a happy and safe New Year's celebration, however you choose to do that. and we will see you back here in 2012 with another episode of Barrie Craig Confidential Investigator. In the meanwhile, send your comments box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives, and give us a call, 208-991-4783. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.